Kitty Cat says she's going to be just the tiniest bit more light than that. About 5 minutes, she said. So I thought we could take a look at the garden just for fun. You missed the peaches, unfortunately. You can see what they did to the tree. Um, it'll be fun. Come on, let's go see the garden. Because we talked about my YouTube project. Yeah, you top them online is like amazing. Looking at the videos of the people who you top them and then you cut them so that they are like big cups, and you can just walk around and take them off, and it was amazing. I saw this giant video of a man. He walked like into the middle of the tree, like not into the trunk, obviously, but the way they prune them and shape them is amazing. And I did not do that. Suffice to say, this is an au naturel peach tree. We got a lot of good fruit off of it though, so and we still have the apples coming in. I don't think the apples are going to be ready for a little while yet because it's June, right? Apples are a fall crop, right? I don't know. I still have to look into it. You can kind of see, you can see it better from the other side because, okay, here's the blackberries and they are bushing out right across the path, actually. So now I have to go around. But yeah, you can sort of see how I did prune the apple tree last year and try and get it to sort of go out to the sides. And the one side got done a lot better than the other side because that side goes over the path and people kept knocking into my weights and they got knocked off. So anyway, look at this massive blackberry coming out of the bench. That's the bench. That's where I used to sit and make videos. You can believe that. And this is where my background was. I almost have natural shade over here. Anyway, that's what. So I what up? I'm just hanging out waiting for my friend Kitty Cat to get. Um, yeah. So that's the roses, and these are some marigolds that came back from last year. Um, Go under the ground over here. It's too damn. This cell reception out here. You can probably hear the rooster though. That's not our rooster. That's not our rooster. Anyways, there's the firewood down there by the fence, which I haven't touched in months. I have felt like shit. In a greenhouse with nothing growing in it because I haven't. Uh, long story short, I feel better lately, but it's been a time. Some patio furniture. I don't know. Maybe we'll go around the other way. Maybe that's more fun instead of trying to stumble back through, sunlit wonderland that. Oh my gosh! And we had a branch come down the other day. Just like today, it was a clear blue sky, and the branch just fell out of the tree. So this tree needs a haircut real bad. Unfortunately, I don't want to do it. It needs it, and that's just, I think, evidence, right? Um, of that. So yeah, it's been 7 minutes, girlfriend. Where are you? It's my channel. I can think of something to do. Hello. Oh, good timing. Beautiful. Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
What a morning. Um,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had to move my setup, so I'm somewhere else right now because, oh no, it's okay. I had everything ready to go, but I also was in the middle of having like dusting my stuff, like shelves and all, right? So I had a little tiny bucket of water to, rinse things, and
Yeah.
it was right next to where I was gonna sit, like on the floor at least. But my
Uh
cat
huh.
decided that was the perfect time to go ahead and see what was in the bucket. And then spilled it all over the place and this water everywhere. And all over because I had everything off my shelves on the floor. So it's
Oh my
soaking into
god.
everything. I'm like, no. This is about like 15 minutes before 9. like, I'm like, of course.
How dare you try and clean something?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I just
Oh my
needed, I
goodness.
mean,
You
a
can't
bucket
be
of
allowed to
water.
get
It's
away
a
with
cat's
that.
best, like, cat's best friend. Like, they're gonna spill it, knock it over, obviously. She's quite
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
quite calm now though. She got a good yelling. So now she's just meekly sitting beside me. It's like, sorry, Ma.
I didn't do anything wrong, right? Like,
I was just curious.
yeah.
I think maybe 6.
Oh, okay. So old
5 or
enough to know
6.
better. Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
cats never know better.
Well,
For the
they know
most
they're gonna
part.
get in trouble. At least
Yeah.
experience should.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's
Ugh.
okay though.
When
At
kittens get up
least
to
nothing
mischief,
got
it's
ruined, I
easier to be
think,
like,
hopefully. I just put a bunch of
yeah,
towels down where the water to sop it up, like a bunch of
uh
beach
huh.
towels that I got out and I just like screwed on there. I'm like, okay, I'll deal with that later.
Oh my gosh,
How have you been?
relatable. Pretty good, pretty good.
Anything new and interesting?
I am sleeping a whole lot because apparently that's what my main problem is.
What?
I,
I mean,
I I'm like over like I have been feeling like shit for the last like 6 months progressively.
oh
And I
no.
thought it was yeah, and I thought it was this thing, and I mentioned the thyroid thing, and like
Yeah, you did.
yeah, so I've just been having a lot of doctor's appointments and trying to figure out why I can't stay awake for an entire day.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So tired then.
Um, right. No, and it's literally basically nothing. And I'm like, but this isn't in my head though. So like, what the fuck is going on? And then summer break came around, and this is you're gonna laugh at me. Okay, so he's almost 8 years old. The little one is almost 8 years old. So I feel a
Mhm.
lot less pressure to like wake up first thing with him in the morning.
Yeah,
You know, so I'll
that
sleep
was a good
until like
times.
yeah, right, yeah. So I'll sleep until like 8 or 9 o'clock, right? And I noticed that I tend to want like 9 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
which research tells me is the long end of normal. And I'm like, oh, okay. So not only am I sleep deprived, I'm extra sleep deprived.
Yeah, I have to have like 8 hours of sleep, or else I'm not the same.
Yeah, I've been getting like 7 or less.
And I like naps, and I still sleep that much. I
Oh,
like a
and
good afternoon nap, like for an hour.
I'm just not a nap person. I think I lose track
Oh,
of
I
my
never used to be,
day.
but I love naps now. Are you kidding me? I'm
Out.
so
It's subject to change and like no judgment. I just feel like I lose all momentum in my day. I
no, it
yeah.
refreshes me. I get up and I'm good to go. I'm also not a morning person either. I'm a night person. Like
Hmm.
I get energy like in the witching hour, kind of what they call it, I guess. The twilight
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah, I used to be that way when I was younger, but I don't know if it's
Hence why
one
I
of
had all the cleaning stuff out and ready to go because I was like in a cleaning mood, like at 7 at night.
well, 7 o'clock at night's not that late.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, because I still like,
Yeah.
yeah. But just to start at 7, usually that's when people
Yeah,
wind
I
down and
suppose.
want to do anything. And I'm like, yep, whoop, let's go.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the last almost 20 years of just having to be hyper vigilant lest one of my crazy family members get a hold of my kid or what.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's and I just hadn't respected that about myself even before that. I can't blame them. You know,
yeah.
it's literally
But
been probably almost 30 years of sleep deprivation, self
yeah,
inflicted.
no, I understand that. Like
Like,
when Ryder started getting old enough that he could be left to his own devices for a bit was like the best,
yeah,
the best because
yeah.
oh man, that was like I like my sleep. And he was so when he was younger, he would have night terrors,
Oh,
which was really hard because he'd just wake up
yeah.
screaming
That's
and
so
won't fully
scary.
wake up. So even when
Right,
he's awake, he's not awake. And it takes a
right.
while for him to like actually be aware and conscious and of his surroundings.
Yeah,
So doing that a few times a night,
yeah. Oh my God.
not fun.
No.
So I'm glad he doesn't have them now, and he's old enough now. He can like he just goes to the computer, waits till I get up, and then I'll make him breakfast, and he's fine. If he was
Right,
really starving, he knows how to do cereal.
right, right.
So yeah, maybe your body's just finally being like, okay, now we can.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, and like it was, I had lost the ability to like follow digressions, like not other people's, but like if I made a digression, I'd be like, wait, what was I talking about before that?
oh yeah.
Like higher level thinking, I'm supposedly a smart person. You understand?
Well, I
Like,
don't think that's even higher level thinking. I just think that that's just everyday, brain fart. I think you just get
right.
them.
No, 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 no. I mean, like, basically entirely. I'd lost the ability to do that almost entirely.
Mm.
So I would just sort of wander off on tangents and forget
But
what
I
I
do
was
that
doing
too. I do that too,
all the
probably more so
time.
than I used to.
All the time, all the time. I'm sorry. I'm feeling much better now that I'm getting more sleep. So
See, that's probably what it was.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It had gotten to the point that it was bad enough that my brain was finally just going woo.
Whoop,
So yeah, and a lot of that is probably why I haven't been making videos and like all kinds of shit. And I'm just kind of resting over the summer and looking forward to the fall when I'm gonna have time to do anything. You know what I mean?
yeah, that reminds me. I've got to let you know that next time we get together, I won't be able to.
Oh,
So
okay.
not this week, but next week, I'm going to be
Yeah.
the boonies in the camping.
Oh,
So
okay. Do you want to
yeah,
reschedule it because that puts us out to a
we
month?
can either do it next Wednesday or we'll just have to like wait. Yeah, because I'll be gone from the 6th to the 9th of
Okay.
July.
Okay. So we could just do 2 weeks in a row if you don't.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
mind. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do it next week, that's fine by me. Totally.
I forget which one that is. Is that you or me? Which one did you talk about?
That's you.
Okay. Yeah, let's get it
Yeah.
over with.
Right.
And then we'll take another 2 week break, I guess, and come back the week after you come back.
Well, we could do that, or we could even just do a weekly thing, or
Yeah, I
whatever
guess that'd
works.
probably be
I'll
easier to
have to look to
remember.
see. I'll have to look to see when my next planned trip is going to be, so I know if it's gonna. Because I think it does land on on a Wednesday, so I just don't know if it's going to be a Wednesday that we land on.
Okay.
So
I'd rather do every other Wednesday and plan around stuff than have to
yeah, we
cancel
can do
them,
that
you
too.
know?
Like I said, I'm flexible, so
Yeah,
as
I'd
long as
rather
it
do
doesn't cut
that.
into my camping.
No, yeah, of course. Have your life, please, for the love of everything. Have your life. And please tell us about it maybe when you get back, huh?
Oh, I definitely will. I will do that then.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll take pictures or something and do a little
Yeah,
collage. I don't
that'd be
know.
so cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Um,
I'll try to remember. I'll write that down. Make sure to take
yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, and I would rather plan around stuff and have the room to do that than have to cancel stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah. So it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be going to this place called Lizard Lake, where the lake is. So that should be fun.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's like no cell phone service in that area, so no
Um,
web, no internet,
well,
nothing.
that's
It's
probably the
like because I
point.
live on a Vancouver Island, and you got a lot of the towns and cities, or the
Yeah.
few cities that we have, all on the east side, so
Okay.
inward, close to Vancouver. And while the west side's kind of like there's a few villages, but not much. So
Nice.
I'm going mostly over onto the west side. So I'm not going to be around anything. So
Ooh.
yeah, so that should be fun.
Now, is it mountainous?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. You have to. I'm not. I don't know how mountainous where I'm going to be at. I go up or I go pat through mountains, and then
Mm.
I get to my destination closer to
Okay.
the west side.
Okay.
But yeah, it's in the forest. It's just like in butt fuck nowhere. This lake.
Mm.
It's a recreation site.
Yeah.
So basically what recreation sites are sites that are not really maintained at all. They were used by the forest industry, and when they were logging in certain areas, and then they would make camps, right? Little
Mhm.
like benches with a like fire pit for the workers or whatever for when they're there, and then they leave, and so you still have that sort of open space, and so they call it a recreational site instead of like a provincial campsite. These are recreational sites, which is different. So, and there's so many of them everywhere, but there's no like actual guide to find them. You're just gonna have to like go look for them. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Have you been
Yeah.
to this one before?
I passed it. That's
Mm.
how I know about it. So I have
Mm.
not been to this one. I've been to one that was that's closer to it, but is just a little bit away. It's called Fairy Creek. Is it Fairy Creek or Fairy Lake? Fairy
Ooh.
Lake, I think. Yeah. Recreational
Ooh.
site. I've been there. And that's close to where Lizard Lake is. So I decided to do Lizard Lake this time because I guess there's lizards there and I want to see some lizards.
Hey, yeah, it sounds fun. We
I
got
didn't see
lizards
the
all
fairies at
over
Fairy
around
Lake, so I
here.
must be seeing some lizards
Well,
this time. False
yeah, I
advertising.
mean, you know, it's a lot of places like that with names that just don't deliver.
Yeah. I actually hear that there are lizards though in this area. There's lots of
Oh, right on.
native lizard species, yeah. So yeah. And
Cool.
there's fishies. I heard that there's lots of fishies in the lake. I'm gonna try to catch a
Cool.
fish. I suck at fishing though. It's the one thing I can never figure out how to do. They don't bite my bait. They don't like my bait. I don't know what I'm doing
Huh.
wrong, but yeah.
That's weird. That's supposed to be
I
easy,
will get it
right?
eventually. I will get it eventually. I swear. One of
I
these days I'm gonna
haven't
catch me a fishy.
really tried, so I can't say, but that it looks easy. anyway, right? That's weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, even when I was a kid, I remember going to like this like little pond that was set up like it's for people to go and fish, like kids and stuff. And it's just like
Yeah.
really dicky thing, and they put the fish in there, right? Trout, like big rainbow
Yeah.
trout. And I remember
Right.
going with my friend, like in elementary school, and like the dad's friend, all catching fish, and I'm sitting there with nothing. And then and then he's like, "Well, let me try." And then he puts it in. 5 minutes later, catches a fish for me. I'm like,
That's
that started my
bonkers.
trip to not be my whole destination and journey to not being able to fish. I don't know. Everyone around
Oh.
me, I always catches fishes, and I'm stuck there with a bait and rod and nothing else. So
Oh.
I don't know what it is.
That's very relatable. I feel like everybody has a thing like that, though.
Yeah, everyone does have a thing like that. Mine's just weird, but it's something.
Yeah. Like mine might be fishing too. I'm trying to think what mine is.
I can crab. I'm good at crabbing. I know a good bait for crabbing, so I got that.
Oh,
The
yeah.
fish part.
What are you worried about that for if you've got crab?
Well, what if I'm in a place like a lake? There's no crabs in the lake.
Okay, okay. Well, then crawdad. You ever tried crawdad? I don't know.
I could catch those, but I don't think this lake has those.
Oh,
There's only certain ones. Like mostly, it's not lakes; it's rivers
mm,
that have crayfish
mm,
or crawdads. I guess you call them down there.
whatever.
The same thing. Little lobsters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. I don't know. We have a big fake lake near here that was a river. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's kind of it's kind of both and doesn't have a whole lot of anything. So
Oh,
I don't know.
that
You see
sucks.
people fishing it. I guess there's fish down in there. Anyway.
Anyway, this is like totally. We're just
Yeah.
talking about fishing.
Yep.
I was
Yep.
gonna ask.
Yep.
Oh, I was gonna mention something too. I didn't realize that. Because you're in Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that they just held up the law about medicalization, gender therapy for kids or whatever. That they
Yeah.
can't do that. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah. So
so I was like, oh,
that's
that's something.
it is. It's a little spark in the darkness, you know. Meanwhile, well, you know.
Yeah. It's probably why I didn't hear about it sooner was because
Yeah.
I'm so busy going, please don't be World War III. Please
Right,
don't
right,
be
right,
World
right,
War
right, 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 right. Exactly, exactly. Who the hell is paying attention to gender politics anymore? My goodness.
Yeah, I kind of want to know if I'm going to live
Uh,
tomorrow instead.
right, yeah, right. Who cares if you're a man or a woman? Get in here. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it still I think matters, but like,
It
how
does,
can
it
you
does,
really
it does.
focus
I
on that
don't mean
shit
to
when
say
you
that it
like really
doesn't.
are about to get maybe blown
No,
up?
precisely. We can argue about it after we're all alive later.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
please.
Yeah,
It's called
exactly.
priorities.
Right, yes, exactly, exactly. I don't mean to say women's rights don't matter. I would never say that.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's like, yeah, it's all connected, anyways. But
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah,
still
yeah. No,
up
it's
in the
all this.
air. It's
Oh my
just,
God.
uh,
You know, and I've been thinking about different, you know, I've sort of taken it to an abstract, more of an abstract level, really, you know,
mhm.
masculine and feminine and like what the fuck is going on psychologically with humanity right now.
You're right.
You know, and there, you know, it's obviously dark masculine shit, right? It's like
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
clearly. And
oh
my
yeah.
theory is that like all of the eldritch like horrors, you know, and like those myths about, you know, those things that lurk in the back of men's minds, you know, it's all about the death that they know has to eventually come due for all of this shit.
Yeah. Well, it's about defying death, right? It's about being God, feeling that you're God, that
Yeah,
you're immortal. Yeah, I know.
yeah. And but you know, on some level that you're not. So there, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and eventually, you know what I'm
No,
saying?
totally. No, I get it. I mean, they
Ah,
are. I do believe that a lot of them are self-deluded. That they have this sort of idea or ideology of divine right of kings.
yeah. Oh, and
Yeah,
that's it. Not consciously aware of any of this. No, that's why it's symbolic. in all these
Yeah,
stories.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And they actually
Yeah.
believe in their own shit, even though like it's so yeah, like it's so religious. But like,
Yes. Yes.
narcissistic religious.
Well, it's modern myth, okay?
Right?
And we
Yeah.
believe that shit just as much as anybody else ever believed theirs.
Like for me, okay, like I'm a really like I believe in facts, logic. You have to be able to explain it to me rationally. If you can't,
Hmm.
then I'm not gonna believe it.
Hmm.
That's just the way I'm an atheist. Like I just like I don't do faith. I don't do faith. I
Hmm.
don't do just, um explanations just to like come up with an explanation. Like I have to have like logical, reasoning, like how we got there, why explain yourself. Like without that, I'm not gonna believe.
Right, and maybe some evidence.
Hmm? Yeah, evidence. Yeah,
Evidence. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Stuff like that.
yeah. I believe in evidence.
Yeah.
So, and
Absolutely.
I believe with what I see with my eyes, what I feel with my, hands, like what I hear with my ears, and like
Hmm.
just yeah. So the fact that like these people actually believe like in divine right of kings is just so wacky to me. But I mean, obviously they
It
do.
is. Right. And I think that they've sort of twisted it into a new shape, new flavor for
Yeah,
like the
well,
modern
they
era,
tell
but
themselves, "Oh, we're so rich and powerful because it was divinely given to us." No, it's because you're a
right,
nepotism, like, and you're a nepo baby. Like,
right,
this is just wealth
right.
that because your ancestors were assholes and stole
Well, like, okay, could
it.
like
Yes.
tell us, could they be any more clear that their idea of God and their idea of father are like synonymous? Because
Yeah.
their
Right.
daddy gave them that money. Their
Hmm.
daddy gave them that money, which means
Hmm.
they are chosen by God. Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. How does that work? Explain this, God. Like,
Because God and daddy are the same,
right? Because they believe
obviously.
themselves a God. But how do you believe that? Well, because you've got the power now. But how? Like, so it's like almost circular, right? It's a circular thing. It's like
Yeah.
that doesn't explain anything.
No.
But
And if you have some kind of a godlike archetype linked to your own father, how are you ever going to live up to that? And it's, oh my
mhm.
God, self perpetuating, just
It's self-perpetuating sociopathy.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
passed down through generations and like not even on purpose. So a lot of the time, I don't think, it's
Well, I think that I do think that like it's purposeful hereditary money, like like
well,
keep the family in
yeah.
power. But it's like
Yeah. But they don't
for
think of
what
it as I am a
cost? At what
sociopath and I shall
cost?
make my
Because you're
son
just gonna
one.
end. It's gonna end eventually. It's just gonna end on what kind of note?
Well, like, okay, I don't even like begrudge anybody wanting to have enough to secure their kids don't starve,
Well,
right?
of course, but this is not to not starve.
No, I know. But like keeping enough to feed an entire city is
Yeah.
probably excessive.
Well, the reason
Uh,
why is not to even feed. It's for greed.
I know. I
Yeah.
know. I
So
know.
there's just no
And I'm just taking it down to its most basic level of what do you need all that for? What is the
power.
ethos
Just
behind
power.
that?
The
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
principle.
Right. It's brainless, is what it is. Because
Yeah.
that's not an ethos. You know what I'm saying? That's not
It's
a
psychotic.
credo.
Not even psychotic, but
Yeah.
it's sociopathic. And it
Oh yeah. Not
yeah.
psychotic like imagining things, although I think they
Yeah, but
are
like it's
sometimes.
sociopathy. It is sociopathy because they've detached themselves from any sort
Yeah.
of human connection with the world
Right.
and with
Right.
others. Yeah. And
And then they
but
look at
that
that as a
just
good
feeds
thing.
into their God complex, right? Because they
Yeah.
see it as a
Right.
top of
Oh
the
my
hierarchy.
God. You want to go to the next level, and then they've created this culture wherein we're all encouraged to look up to that and emulate that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, as a microcosm,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
goes against our nature. This is why they have to use propaganda, because without the
yeah,
propaganda, we would go back to our evolutional biological nature, which is community, because we're social
yeah,
creatures, right? And it's not
yeah.
about you know being getting the upper hand and just like fight. It's not about competition.
No,
We're not in
no,
competition
yeah,
with our species, with each other. We're not. It doesn't work
no. I
it
mean,
doesn't work logically on like a whole evolution basis. it doesn't, make sense. Just because, like, if without coming together and using shared resources, then, if something environmentally out of our hands happens, we have the resources. If we're sharing it all together, more hands on deck. Individually, we're easily to be taken off. This is why most creatures are social creatures. They're not predatory. We're not pumas. We're not cougars. We're not,
Right.
these are very, very minuscule amounts compared otherwise to like predatory and lone predatory creatures. Like,
Well, like find me.
there's barely any of them. They don't exist because evolution wise it doesn't work usually
Yeah.
for most species.
And they don't build cities, do they?
No.
If we're not a social species, why in the heck do we compulsively clump into these giant clusters?
Because it's in our
Like,
nature.
what is that?
And that's why they constantly have to propagandize to individualize us. Because without that propaganda, we go back to community. Because it's in our genes, it's in our whole makeup, our whole biology.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and then they just come in and destroy it, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah.
I don't want to chit chat for too long because I know you're gonna have stuff you got to go do. I have my kids in there occupying themselves, so I could probably sit here for 3 or 4 hours before my phone dies. But
well, hold on. I'm just gonna. Where did I put my thing here? Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Oh.
Okay.
Oh. You want it, kitty? No. Where did you put it? You don't know? Oh, there we go. I had to get my lighter in case I wanted to spark the smoke.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Did I tell you I quit that too?
The green?
No, the bad one.
Oh, yeah. You did?
Yeah. I got a patch on here.
I forgot that you even did. I forgot you even smoked.
I'm down to step 2.
I'm the only one who smokes.
Oh no, I used to do it on camera all the time too.
Yeah, no, you did. I remember that now.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't make a big thing about it.
The only cat.
No.
Smoker here.
No. You do what you want. You can even do it in front of me, and I genuinely don't care. My mother-in-law smokes in the house all the time.
I know, but I'm all alone.
Well,
no one wants to die with cancer.
You don't. Hey, I still smoked for over 20 years. I'm not necessarily off the hook for that, but yeah, I had a moment where like my chest hurt one morning and I didn't want to put it out. Like I wanted to smoke it anyway, and I'm like, okay, I officially want them while they are hurting me.
When did you quit smoking?
Like back in March, I think. No, it was April. It was April 11th, is what it was.
Was it then?
No.
No? Okay. Because I'm like, it might be something to do with that.
It might be. That's a weird thought. But no, I've been struggling with lethargy going back into the winter, so I had been blaming it on the seasonal. I had been blaming it on the seasonal depression, and then I came up borderline diabetic, so I was like, oh, that's why I feel like shit. So I'm gonna fix my blood sugar.
And a connection going on. I was like, oh, maybe. Never mind.
No.
Never mind.
No, it's been a whole series of events with the blood sugar, and then I fixed my blood sugar, and I still feel like shit. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So it's been this whole adventure, and then it all comes back to like just, and then it just ended up being sleep, which is free, on the bright side, and not medical. I don't need a doctor.
Yeah, if it's just needing sleep, then I mean that's pretty good. I know I'm gonna have to go for another checkup soon, just because like I'm getting old, and I'm having like when I'm out working in the yard and stuff, I'm starting to like sweat a lot and like can't catch my I can catch my breath, but I'm like it doesn't take much. It's like takes a lot more out of me than it used to. So
right,
I should probably go do something about that. Make sure that I'm not gonna keel over when I'm out there in the backyard.
I had these bags under my eyes that have finally started to fade for the first time in 20 years. Like,
there you go.
Girl, the more I think about this, I'm starting to think that everybody is sleep deprived, and that's part of what getting old. We think getting old is.
Yeah.
It's just the long term effects of sleep deprivation.
Yes, I'd say so. It's true. Like,
Yeah. So, I'm just that's my little favorite conspiracy theory right now. I think, and nobody wants to talk about that because, well,
but I do.
productivity. No, yeah. Uh,
I mean, fuck shit,
I guess
yeah.
there's not a. I guess that's all there is to say, though. Really, I mean,
Well, I mean, think about it. If you want to be able to, okay, the cost of living is so high now that you're constantly having to work, constantly having to find work, and it's so precarious. And you're like, so you're constantly doing that for how long in your life? And if
yeah.
you want to have any other hobbies, you're gonna have to. That's even more time. There's not enough time to go around. You get, and then you have kids. You add that to it.
Yep.
Like it's exhausting. It's
Hmm.
exhausting, and it's just the way our systems run. I
Yeah.
think, but it always
Well,
comes
and
down to it.
if and I have, you know, the luxury of resting.
Yeah.
I guess that's my privilege in this world right now. Is my I have enough other hands in this house as I do. I have the privilege of resting a little bit, but
Hmm.
like, what about all the other like millennials and the next generation? Like,
Well,
what
that's
about
what
all
I
everybody
think
else?
too. Because
The
I
middle
got the
age, the,
same thing, the privilege
the,
of being able to be at home, making my own schedules and stuff like that,
yeah,
and not have to
right. But
really worry
the
about much of the about rent or whatever because I've got property set up.
yeah,
So
that's
I'm
cool.
good. But I see other people in my age demographic, and I'm just like, oh my god, just
Yeah.
watching you tires me. Like
Right,
even
yeah.
all the
Well, the
things that
middle
you do
age
tires
crash is gonna be like the middle age crash is gonna be societal changing. Like, holy shit!
right.
Like, oh
Like
my god.
I know people that like will like work 3 jobs and like
Yeah,
this is in my one of my book sort of club thingies that I sometimes go to, and he's got 3 jobs and he's still like, and then in between the jobs he like will come and we'll talk, we'll do sprints, or we'll like talk about certain things in this little group, and I was like, but when do you sleep? He's like, oh, I don't sleep. like like it's crazy. I'm just like, geez, he'll tell he'll, when you're talking, explain like how his time's managed. I'm just like, holy, like what? Like I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have a
no,
nervous
and I don't think
breakdown.
most people can. I don't think most people can. I think maybe like
You can only do it for so
you
long
know
before you burn out.
a
You
lot.
got to.
Right, right, right. And I think some people can carry that on for longer than others. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah.
it's
Just the
true.
fact that you've been doing it for a decade is not proof that it will never come back to bite you.
Well, yeah, especially when the older you get, it's got to be harder and harder. Like,
Yep.
because even
Yep.
without, like, I don't have certain pressures like that, and I still need a nap at 3 or 4 in the afternoon after getting 8 hours of sleep. So I don't know how they're doing it. Because yeah,
No, and my goal is to not do that. Like you say, you enjoy them, so more power
I
to
love
you.
naps. I think naps are great. I love naps to death.
But like mine have to become mandatory. You know what I'm saying? And that's not
Well, no, sometimes I don't have naps, but it just feels so nice. Feels so
right. And
good.
you choose. So if you want to do that and you choose to do that, that's not what I was dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
uh,
You know what's good though? When you're camping and you have an afternoon nap in the tent, when you
mm,
can have breathe all that fresh air. By the way, that's when I have the best sleep is when I'm outdoors and fresh air
yeah,
and the trees, and then being
right.
shaded by them too, and not in the city where you're breathing on all exhaust fumes and shit.
Um,
Best sleep of my
mm,
life is when I
that
go
does
camping.
sound nice.
Yeah. And I have way more energy too when I'm out in the forest and stuff. And I do think it has to do with like the amount of oxygen that you get when you're in surrounded by trees. Really.
Hmm. Well, I'm kind of surrounded by trees here, but that's because we live on the edge of the countryside. So
Mm.
hmm. There is also a freeway right over there. So
Yeah, but like being in the middle of a forest, like in the middle of like
yeah.
thick trees. Man.
Mm, someday. There's so
Yeah,
many camping space places near here, but like, yeah, I just basically crashed hard like 2 or 3 months ago, I guess,
yeah,
despite all of my efforts, and it's just been fun, super fun.
yeah.
Ah, but I'm feeling better now.
That's good though, and
Working
then I'm glad that it's
on the
not something
mend.
more like a thyroid issue or like whatever the case with
Serious,
medical
right?
issue.
Yeah, like,
You guys
something
don't even
serious.
have. You guys don't have. I don't know what your healthcare is like. You personally know that you ain't getting it from the government, like free healthcare.
Ah,
So
no, no. We did. We used to because we were poor, and now we're not so poor, so we don't have that anymore. So we have to pay for the. Anyway, it's. I'm sure you can see how that's self-defeating. Like,
yeah, yeah,
uh, taking people's help away just as they become reasonably successful at all. It's great,
yeah. No, everyone should have free healthcare without strings attached.
America.
America.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. I miss.
But no, it's America, so it's a business.
Right. No, and out here we live in places where there's literally little nooks and crannies that don't even have internet yet. So
Wow. Well, I mean, there's a lot like
yeah,
that here in Canada
right. I'm sure because
because
of the hills,
there's a lot
right?
of
Like
like Canada's big, but most people live southern. But the ones
right,
that do live in northern, there's villages scattered all over the place, and like there ain't nothing there.
right.
And
We
it's
had a
a
friend
big
who
country, so the next like village is like past like huge peaks and mountains and stuff. Like,
right. No, a friend of ours actually was from one of those little towns. I wish I could remember which if my husband were here, he could tell you. Um, and he because they were best friends until he actually unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But
oh,
yeah,
that sucks.
was from one of those little towns, and he would talk about stuff like that sometimes. His parents, I guess, still live up there. So
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting away from it, having a place, growing my own food. But anyways,
yeah,
the dream.
yeah.
I don't know how my kid would like it though. He likes his computer games. So.
I don't see like ideally it would be possible to do both, right? There's no reason
Yeah,
you can't play video games and grow food, right? Right?
yeah.
That's not the future we all want, right? Like
I mean, I don't really give a shit about computer games, so
I don't either. I
yeah.
don't either. But let them
I
have
wish.
them. Who gives a fuck? I mean,
Well, it because it's addictive. It can be addictive.
Uh,
You know how many
well,
kids now
yeah.
that don't do anything? Almost all of them,
Okay.
except
Well,
for being on the
obviously they need
computer, and I
guidance.
just don't think it's
They
healthy.
need guidance. It's. I mean, yeah, a lot of things can be addictive, though. I really, I think
But they're
it's.
made like the things that are like online are made to be addictive.
Well, yeah.
And when it comes to kids, and then the parents is yeah, you can say, well, it's up to the parents, but the parents, if they're working all the time, don't have the luxury to watch the
Oh, well, we're
kids.
talking about the ideal future where we get to farm for a living.
Oh
So,
yeah, then totally. Which yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
The computer games in themselves are fine.
yeah, yeah.
Like, there's no reason you can't have an electronic game. I don't see any reason you can't,
No, yeah, no. If
just
things were neutral,
base level.
yeah, if things were
Yeah.
neutral, and nothing's ever neutral.
If they
Though.
weren't predatory,
Yeah,
I would have no
yeah,
problem.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
trying to find something predatory in this world right now is a hard mission to do.
right. And that's where the state, the everything has just completely fallen down on the job,
Yeah, well, I mean,
regulatory.
it's very precarious right now. Like, oh my God, Israel, I hate you.
Oh my God.
Stop trying to bomb everyone. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Can you just stop
Yeah.
doing that? That'd be nice. Jeez.
No, you want to talk about a God complex.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even just
I,
some of
I,
the face of it. So they're like, oh, nuclear weapon. You know how many times they've been saying they're close to nuclear weapons? They're not. They're not. And
right.
there's only one Middle Eastern country that has nuclear weapons. That's Israel.
Who are clearly just the sanest, most rational people on the block.
Right?
Right.
Let's just
Yeah.
start nuking people or bombing people, right?
Oh my god. And I just don't. If I suddenly became Empress of the world, I would just make it not there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't. Israel does not have a right to exist.
No,
Zionism is like a crackpot like ideology that back in the day it was considered a joke even by the Jewish community. Most Jewish community people in the community took it as a joke until
no, right.
propaganda, right?
And this is the part where I get to remind the record that my opinion on this is informed by dating a Jew for 7 years. I almost married this guy.
Hmm.
I got to know his entire family, and they were not Zionists. Okay,
Yeah,
like
yeah, but
I know
yeah, yeah. Oh,
it's ridiculous. It's an insane political ideology that has to be, it's like somehow linked to white supremacy, ironically, and like it
yes,
just
it's an
that part
ethno
melts my
state.
brain.
It's a
No, I
literal
know, but
ethno
that
state
right. But so they're Jews, which is supposed to be not at I don't know. Apparently, I still need to update my
because they're
mental
Ashkenazi
software.
Jews, right? They're Ashkenazi Jews that which are different.
Okay.
Ashkenazi Jews don't have any ties to that land. They're white because their ancestors converted to Judaism. They're not actually from this area. They're just a bunch of white people
Mm, okay.
for the most part. And
Okay.
it's not about
Okay.
anti-Semitism either. I mean, because Iran
No, obviously.
has a lot of Jewish citizens. Like, and that's the
Oh,
thing
good
that
lord.
really annoys me is this whole it's so racist. Okay, when they talk about they hate, yeah, if you're LGB, go over there and see how they handle it, or they'll throw you off if you show your hair off the building. No, not every Middle Eastern country is not Saudi Arabia, our allies, by the way.
Right.
You're like, there's women walking around not fucking covering their face and not covering their hair. You don't have to be Muslim. Like, this is like, it's bullshit. Even in Palestine, when they talk about the Palestinians, for one, lesbianism completely legal. They do not throw. They don't act. They're not like gonna throw you off a building if you're gay. And there was only out of the two, there was West Bank and West Bank and then the Gaza Strip. I forget which one, but only one of them had it was illegal, but it wasn't enforced. They're a little bit busy trying to survive. They
Mm,
don't really have time to they don't have no ability to put things into law because they were occupied and like pretty much policed by Israel, who, by the way, does not recognize gay marriage. You can't even get married to someone of a different religion. They have to be Zionist. So what are you talking about? But like this conception that they're all just savages, and they're all just savages. Like the whole area. Well, they're brown. They have to be savage. That's what it basically comes down to. Because you're not even taking a
oh,
look to see You're not even looking at the laws of the country. You just assume it's Saudi Arabia because they're all brown in Saudi Arabia. So they're basically the same. That's what it comes down to. Even if they
mhm.
don't, even the people making these arguments don't realize it, that's what's come down to because you haven't looked into the laws of the land yourself, obviously.
Yeah. No, I knew that it was something to do with, which boggles my mind because you remember when the white supremacists were killing Jews? Like,
Yeah,
what? How did this? Obviously, there's been a crossfire somewhere,
yeah.
and then
Well,
maybe
this
it's
is the
me.
thing with
I just,
about Zionism is that it creates anti-Semitism because they
well,
conflate
yeah,
Zionism with Judaism all the time,
right,
and then people
yeah,
are going to start to believe that that's a Jewish thing when it's not. It's a Zionist thing, and so that's going to cause Zionism. Being a Zionist causes anti-Semitism
yeah,
because there's going to be a backlash, considering how
yeah.
all the horrible things that the Israel's done and the conflation that they've made and
And
put
it's
out
what
there.
happens when people believe that God is on their side. It's so terrifying.
Most Zionists in Israel are secular. They don't believe in God.
What?
Yeah,
Then what on earth is there justification
there
for
is none.
being
The
what?
justification is because it's just about white supremacy. Even if they don't articulate that, that's what it is, and that's what they've been brought up to believe.
Oh, okay, so that's the most
Yeah, I know it's
ironic
crazy
fucking
because
thing.
they're saying, well, God says it's in the Torah or whatever. It's our land, but we don't believe in God. I know, but it's
Okay,
true.
that's bonkers. And as far as the racism, I mean, it's just the most ironic fucking thing I've ever heard, possibly. Right?
Hmm.
Wow, wow.
Hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure a large part of the reason, at least public faith wise, that Israel does exist is because the whole fucking world felt oh so bad about the Holocaust.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was put out there, right? And that's why it
Right.
was acceptable. But the people that
So
were able
then,
to have power that made the decisions wasn't about feeling bad, but more as using it as an opportunity to have a proxy state in the Middle East for the world. Because it's in a
and I'm
very
not
it's a
saying,
very very strategically opportunistic area
mhm,
on the sort of stage of where to be if you want to start to take over and to hold control in the Middle East. It's in a point where it's like kind of going into the middle, and you've got like connections like close to Europe as well. Like it's close to Europe, but not part of Europe. It's like a wedge. So it makes it easier to divide and conquer that way. So it's in a placed in a
oh,
very strategically opportunistic sort of area for
hmm,
for if you're thinking it in a foreign sort of conquering aspect.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's
and I
just
will say this.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I will say this. I know that there are populations here in the United States that believe that God said so.
Oh, I
I've
know.
met
Oh,
them.
I know.
I've met
And I'm
people
not
like
saying
that.
all Jews in Israel are secular Jews. I'm saying the majority of them are.
Well, that tends to be the majority most places. So, well,
Yeah, but the fact that that's the argument though is so like it doesn't make any sense on its face, right?
no.
Because the whole argument that God gave you this land, but you don't believe in God. How does that work? Like, right? Like it's what?
Well, it doesn't, does it?
No.
Oh my gosh. And I just feel sorry for everybody over there who's just trying to make supper. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
the regular
Right?
people who I'm sure there are. I understand that this is my privilege to like. I'm going to leave this conversation and probably not think about this as much as possible for the rest of the day. Because I don't live over there. You know, I'm going to be able to go in my kitchen and make supper and listen to a video about something else. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I feel so bad for those who cannot do that. That's where my heart is over there. You know, the ones who are just trying to live their
Hmm.
lives and don't necessarily, not necessarily the Israelis, because maybe, I don't know, but anybody who's over there and they're just trying to, have a family and make some supper and like live their life,
Yeah.
you know.
Because without the US, Israel wouldn't be able to exist because that's where they get all the weapons and the money. You
Yeah, I
realize
know, I know, I
you
know, I know, I
realize
know.
that you pay your taxes to help pay for all of their healthcare, by the way. They get free healthcare. I'm dead serious. Yep.
Why didn't Bernie Sanders just beat the drum? But don't answer that question because then it's a hypothetical question.
You're like, ah, shut up, Katrina.
Don't answer that question. These are
Don't dare
the sort
answer
of
that.
wild impressions I'm throwing out here. I did hear him, speaking of him, Bernie Sanders, I heard him admitting the other day that they just totally closed ranks and screwed him over the 2016 election. So that was nice.
Well, of course he did.
No, I
But he
know, and I
was right.
watched it, but
He
they
was right
usually you
for it,
don't, no,
you know?
no, usually nobody admits to stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
usually they just like, oh yeah, that didn't happen, and then they do it again. So at least somebody is admitting it who is actually involved. That's nice.
Yeah. I think a lot of the times I think it's mostly just through blackmail, right?
I don't know what they just. I
You
mean,
should read
read.
what's it called? Under
Oh,
One
people don't
Nation.
speak up about the times they get. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, absolutely. Sorry.
No, but there's a book I'm thinking of. I can't.
I thought you were saying that they screwed Bernie over because of blackmail. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure
No,
that
no,
was
no,
just
no, no, no,
anybody
no, no,
causing ranks
no,
and
no, no.
being a dick.
No, just that when people get blackmailed, right? They
Yeah,
usually that's why they don't speak out. Yeah. But
right. And why they move in
there's
lockstep like that? Yeah.
this is gonna bug me. Hold on, give me 2 seconds. I'm just gonna take a look under on my little tablet over
Okay,
here just so I can get that book that I'm thinking of.
you're
Uh,
fine.
so yeah, there's a book that goes into all of that sort of a very detailed too book that goes into all of that underhanded sort of blackmail politicians and all that. Hold on.
Oh, they do it everywhere.
I know, but this is very specific cases, actual
Oh,
cases.
nice, nice, nice.
So it's not just like a theory, it's like documentation. One nation under
Right on.
blackmail. There we go. The
Hmm.
sordid union between intelligence and crime that gave rise to Jeffrey Epstein.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's by Whitney Webb. So I've
I got
talked
to
about
tell
her
my
before.
I got to tell my Trump voting friend about Elon Musk's Epstein tweet. He hadn't seen that. I was like, really? Well, let me tell you something. He really didn't. He didn't have much to say to that either.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, so there's volume 1 and 2, so it's a 2-book set.
Nice.
I still have to get it. I haven't bought it yet, but I've seen
I mean,
experts.
surely they do it better than like in the entertainment industry where they literally will just invite you to a party, catch you on camera
That's what
doing
Epstein
something
was for,
ridiculous.
politicians, right? That's what Epstein did
Yeah,
with politicians, and then they would tape and film them. This is what P
right,
Diddy did, and P Diddy learned
right,
it
right,
from
right. That's who I
his
was.
friends up in with Epstein and all that. That's where he learned how to
Yeah,
do that, to blackmail, and that's how they get politicians that seemed to be speaking out a little bit too much.
yep.
But the thing is, how can there be at least one person out there not ready to go f some kids?
Yeah.
Like, like they shouldn't be able to have shit on you. Is the
Well,
point?
so
Is the
they got
one
them
thing?
some other way.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
I
But
mean, put yourself in the mind of the blackmailer. If it's not that, it's something else. Everybody has a
I know, but
weakness.
how? But I know, but like, there's only so much you can do. If there's nothing to blackmail you with, all you got left is threats of violence.
True. What the problem there is? What exactly? What are they going to do? Report you?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean?
I don't know. I'm not exactly a mastermind scheming behind the scenes, am I? But I figure that anybody who's in politics is just probably not squeaky clean enough that they have no
Well,
weaknesses
like, yeah,
whatsoever,
but what do you
other
define
than
politics? Like, if they're in the political system and running as a Democrat, then of course not. If you're actually in the system working like within it and trying, like, obviously you're gonna. The only way you get ahead is by stepping on people, so you're already compromised. But to be politically organizing in a community for different like things and stuff like that is different because you're not really working within the system. You're doing it through community wise, which is a little bit different.
yeah. No, yeah. No, I guess I meant politicians.
Yeah, politicians, the politicians, they're like an old breed
Yeah,
onto themselves. Like,
the career politician, the
yeah,
person who doesn't mind doing all of that weird smiley handshaky bullshit.
yeah, who doesn't mind
Um,
working in the systems, even if you say
right.
that, oh, it's so corrupt in this, but you're still working in it.
Right. So by the time they become important enough for anyone to worry about blackmailing them, there will be something.
Oh, there will be something. They have to be something. There will
That's what I'm saying.
because
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
I know exactly. Yeah,
It probably never comes to threats of violence because they're just all like that.
yeah.
And
I
it could
mean,
literally be
because
something as simple
it's
as,
like that the one lady that actually spoke out because she was trafficked through Epstein, right?
hmm
The one where she blew all the case open, she mysteriously died
right. Yeah.
after
So,
right before coming to
yeah.
trial.
Right. So it's not so much threats of violence. It's like, the actual thing
Kill you,
itself.
yeah, knock, yeah,
Yeah.
you're off. I mean, look at all the whistleblowers from Boeing.
Oh
The
my God.
first couple of whistleblowers that actually came out right before trial, all of a sudden mysteriously killed themselves. Why would you wait? Why would you wait till the day before the trial to then all of a sudden just not really? And then the other one, I think, died from like some sort of weird ammonia or some sort of something really simple. Just up and died right before trial too. It's like, well, that's little, that's crazy.
The corruption is
At the
just
same time, Boeing's like falling out
everywhere.
of the sky, like in
Yeah.
India.
Weird. Yeah. And I just don't, I'm glad I don't need to fly for any reason. You know, that would be so
Have you
terrifying.
read the whistleblowers report of Boeing? Oh my
No,
god.
I haven't, but I'm
Oh,
sure it's
okay.
sad.
Yeah, they sent all the engineering and all that and putting the actual plane to India, actually, or was it Pakistan? I don't know. Somewhere around there, and pay people under minimum wage who were not engineers, and they basically held together with like tape and glue, fitting pieces together that don't like mix, not recalling actual like equipment that needed to be recalled, and just using it anyways. Oh yeah, there was a whole report on it that was leaked to the to people through anonymous ways, right? Because obviously, I mean, look what happens to all the other whistleblowers from Boeing. So like, yeah, and these are workers who are like, you know, anonymously being anonymous and, you know, putting it out there so that people are aware that they're like literally are just like trying. It's basically a sweatshop for fucking airplanes. Sweatshop labor for airplanes. That's how Boeings are now built, to save money.
Oh, how have they been getting away with that?
Because they have contracts with the military industrial complex and Pentagon. And so they get away with it. They just get all the cases have been thrown out.
Then why on earth do they need to save money?
Because they want to take the money for themselves. So they need to, it's not about saving money, it's about taking
There
money.
it is. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
From who exactly?
Yeah, everyone else.
The American public, specifically,
Yeah.
it sounds like. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And they're using it to murder people. I love that. I mean, I guess they were eager to join the club, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Speaking of using wealth to murder people,
it's just
you
gone
don't have
to
to
a
read this.
point now, the world is almost to a point where it's almost comically satire. You would think it would be satire that someone wrote all this shit up. Like
Right.
back in
And then,
even in the 50s or 60s or something, thinking in the future they would write this as a satire, the world we live today. I swear to God, that's how
yeah,
it seems.
yeah.
It's just
Well,
that crazy.
and that's, I think, what people mean when they say idiocracy is real, is that it feels like we're living in a bad satire.
Yeah, it really does. That's why
Yeah.
I'm all about gallows humor, because this has got to be some sort of satire, cosmic joke, because it's just so ridiculous.
Right. No, and
This
you
is
should
where we're at.
come. You should come and stay the night at my house sometime because I literally live in a sitcom. I'm not even fucking kidding. Sometimes I can almost hear the laugh track. Like it's so ridiculous, some of the goofy shit that goes on around here. And then I look at the news and I'm like, what the whoa, you know, like.
And then I look at the news. Yeah, that will do. Then
You know, and it's like
because it's scary.
it's like we live in a sitcom that tries to be a soap opera sometimes. That's about the vibe of it, you know.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the real world is like a war documentary, and I'm just like, wow, okay,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
wow.
And then you listen to like Donald Trump, like whatever, like over X and everything, and the thing like his posts
Oh,
are
I
just
don't.
so
But yeah,
lowbrow,
no,
like comical. Like it's
I
like this.
saw somebody talking about his stuff the other day, and it was like literally, "We are at war. Peace is the only way." In the same tweet, and I'm like,
I
"What is
know.
he
And
doing?
he leaves it
What
all.
is he
Thank you
doing?"
for your attention to this matter or something. Every post. Like it's like, what are you doing? And always like, he always speaks like this. Donald Trump as the president. It's like
Watch
it's
him
like
not
shit
even be the
himself.
one fucking writing those things. Watch him not even be the one fucking writing those things.
And he'll like in the middle of he'll like all of a sudden use like all caps, with like a
Right.
bunch of exclamation marks, like as if like when he's like making an address or whatever, like to the public on his Twitter, and it's like, what are you?
Yeah, well, maybe that's
Like
how he thinks of
you
it.
are so dumb, like, but not dumb, but like because it does
Like, I
speak
guess
to
it's
his
better
idiot.
than
It
I
is
guess
idiot
it's better
based,
than
but
tweeting like you think nobody's watching, right? As the president, I mean,
or that I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know if it's any better. I can't verify that
I don't
because
know.
he's also trying to appeal to his base, and his base
Yeah.
is
Well, I live amongst his base. I live amongst his base, right?
yeah.
And they had a protest here on his birthday that had probably 1,000 people, and the counter protest was about 7.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
he's. I don't even know how popular he is around here lately. You just don't see the Trump memorabilia
Well,
like you used
yeah,
to,
because he's gone back on
Um,
everything, like, and it's so fast,
yeah, yeah,
so fast.
yeah. So fast, it's not even long enough
You
for
know,
people to
his
forget
approval
any of
rating
the stuff that he said.
isn't as was it was as because not all mega are like crazy, like, Bible thumping rednecks. They're not all like,
I just said I live here. I know.
no, I know, but I'm just saying generally speaking, because a lot of people like
Yeah,
just are very what's it, polarizing in that aspect. It's
yeah.
like the reason why people went to Donald Trump in the fucking first place is because look at what the Democrats were. Look at that shit that they pulled. Like, there's a
They
reason. It's
lost
because
a
he
lot
gave
of
them false
women.
hope. And I know that it was stupid, but I mean, for the regular person who don't have time to be in politics, like going through history of politics, it's going to be a little bit hard to navigate. And
Right.
a lot of people don't agree with what he's done and have gone back. And even now, I see even like on YouTube and stuff like that, but where you got these liberals going off like you're sorry. Well, I don't really care if they take you down to and lock you up
Right.
in
Right.
El
Oh my
Salvador
gosh.
prison. Throw the way they can. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm
People who
like,
supposedly hold egalitarian values at their core are like, you know what? I can never forgive you. Are you serious
yeah,
right now? Are you serious? What?
right.
They don't deserve food all of a sudden? Are you serious right now?
Well, I mean, I forget
Oh
who
my
said this, but
God.
it's like I forget who said this. But someone, I'll quote this person anyways, whoever this person is. They got it so right. All you scratch a liberal, and underneath is a fascist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, literally just thinking that.
Yeah,
Literally just
right. Well,
thinking
it's
that.
fucking
That's funny.
true.
Yeah, yeah. Because they're such good people. And if you're not a good person, you deserve to be in prison
Yeah,
and maybe not get good food to
it's like
eat.
your side ain't no
Yeah.
better. Your side ain't no fucking better. Like, where do you get off? And where do you get
Now,
off?
and that's why it was refreshing to hear Bernie Sanders bitching about the Democrats because he could do that because he's an independent.
Yeah.
He's the only one. Oh my
Yeah, but
God.
he wasn't gonna win. And the thing is, he did
And
throw his face under the bus, like, because he's afterwards he was like, for Hillary, and
oh
I'm like,
no, yeah, that pissed me off. But like, he looked
it
like he
pissed
had
off
a
a lot
gun
of
to
people.
his
It
back.
really, and this
He
is another reason
literally
why a lot of
did.
people went to Trump, is because people were so deflated. We're just so because there was so much momentum, so much
Right.
energy with that movement, and then it
Okay.
just threw them under the
Okay.
bus, and then
Okay. I don't care. I have a serious question for those people who are over 25 anyway. Do you not know who Donald Trump is?
yeah.
He's been famous since I was a little kid. We know who this man is. What the
Yeah, but
fuck?
he's the way I know, but the thing is, the way that he speaks really speaks to the working class individual guys. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it worked. It worked. And if the left or the quote unquote left, I would not call it left, the Democrats didn't just completely constantly just brush aside any sort of concerns and just fucking gave more to themselves and their corporate Wall Street buddies. If they did any sort of anything for the masses of people, it wouldn't have gotten to this point either. So it's
No, it's
like,
literally
what are you
like,
supposed to do? And so I mean, and the thing is, yeah, Donald Trump, but a lot of people are busy with work. A lot of people don't have time to really look at and contemplate a lot of what's going on, especially in the
then
media.
don't vote.
Hmm?
Then don't
Well, I
vote.
mean, no, but they're going to vote because they actually think that there's going to be change. It's not because that they think, well, I got to vote for them for him because like he might be bad but at least it's something. No, they're not thinking that. They're just thinking they're actually buying into it.
Right. But
So it's not
so
like they're
I have,
purposely just doing it because of the lesser of two evils. They literally bought into it, and so how much blame can you put onto someone who literally didn't have the capacity to see through it?
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I'm impatient and upset with those people, but would I deny them food and shelter? No. Like, what the
Yeah, or tell
fuck?
them go to El Salvador. I'm
Right.
glad your family
Right.
got like put into El Salvador. Yeah, like that's so
That's
disgusting.
that's fucked up.
That's
Yeah. No.
fascist. That's so
Yeah.
fascist.
Yeah. If you ever find yourself playing with the idea that you have the right to tell other people what to do, you should check yourself. That's the moment to stop and say, wait a minute.
Yeah. But I have beliefs of what people should do, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, right, right,
I
right. And
don't enforce.
I have beliefs about how like the legal system should be set up to encourage blah 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 blah, right?
Mhm.
But that's not the same thing as forcing people to, you know. Also,
Yeah,
there's legal and safety stuff, and then there's personal social stuff, right?
yeah,
I would distinguish between, you know, like obviously gay marriage is personal social stuff and has nothing to do with like the criminal justice system. What the fuck is that? They used to arrest gay men.
yeah,
That shit.
yeah.
At least we don't do that anymore, I guess, around here.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the future holds.
I
You
know, I
never.
know, I know, I know,
It's
I know, but we
there's
can't be all doom and
backlash for
gloom. We
everything.
can't be all doom and gloom, or it's already over.
Yeah.
So
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you never know where it's gonna go, and I think that's the most sort of.
yeah,
I mean, you can find hope in that because there's always to get out of it. It's not set in stone,
right.
but
And you
it
know, at
makes for
least it's gonna
interesting time.
be.
It just makes for interesting times. I'll give it that.
Yeah. Oh, goody. Don't we love that? Interesting times.
I'm like, who needs to be watching TV and the fucking whatever when you've got such a fucking lively cast right
Genuinely,
here in real life?
genuinely, genuinely. Only for escapism, right? And like, why would you escape into a drama? That seems strange to me.
Yeah, not
Like,
really into
yeah.
escapism, anyways.
No, no,
I
no,
never
no.
really
But I'm
have
just
been.
saying, that's the only reason you would watch TV at this point is
Yeah,
escapism.
well, I mean, if they had any social commentary to like provide and maybe give insight, but that's not happening. I mean, everything's a corporation now, right? So
Right. Oh my God. And
everything's a
everything is
product.
so
Everything's just a
bad.
product. To the
Everything
lowest
is so
common denominator it
bad.
goes.
I'm like, I wouldn't have believed even 10 years ago that pop music could get as bad as it is. Like, it's really bad. It's
Oh,
really
it's really
bad.
bad. It's really bad.
It's
At
really
lowest, like I
terrible.
said, lowest common denominator. That's what capitalism does. It just things become corporatized, like into a product. Everything can be bought and sold, and it's just the lowest common denominator. Race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Things get crappier and crappier, and like
Well, and I have a theory actually. I had a little theory crop up the other day. You'll appreciate this, which is, you know, I was just thinking, like, though, why? I mean, music's been corporatized for a long time. Why did it used to like not be such shit? You know, like I do still enjoy some older music. You know,
because, like I said, race to the bottom. Like the
right?
more things become like monetized, and then more conglomerated together, run by lesser and fewer people, fewer hands on deck, and just like
Mm.
cheaper to be cheaper and cheaper, things dip in quality. And that relates to everything. When everything becomes a capitalist product to be bought and sold, and then to make money off of and profitized, then it's a race to the bottom. So things, all things, houses, music,
Well,
food,
and
education, everything is just plummets and quality.
I know, I know, I know. But also, I think that as this is happening, you know, the people involved have like, you know, different mindsets as time goes on, right?
Hmm.
because this happens over generations, and so each generation comes in at a different point, and then approaches these things with a different mindset. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about the boomers, right? And like they got a lot of good music, and I just truly believe that there were a lot more of them that had the temperament and the time to saying, I am a musical genius. And a couple of them turned out to be right, you
Hmm.
know? Like, and I just feel like every generation after that was less likely to say that to themselves, like
Yeah,
progressively, you know?
maybe. I don't know. I think I
No,
was
I
pretty
completely agree with what you said too, but that would be why each generation was progressively less likely to say that to themselves.
maybe something to think about. Where's my phone?
I like looking at how the human aspect of things, and how like we respond to these weird environmental things that are going on.
Yeah.
And how I do truly feel that over time it shapes the general psyche,
Oh, it totally does. Oh, it totally does.
in ways that
The
are
macro
less
system
than good.
totally does affect on a microscopic level on the individual.
Yeah,
Totally does. I totally agree with
right,
that.
right, right. And so that's why, you can listen to, like interviews, like footage of people talking from 70 years ago, and the young people say stuff, and you're just like, wow, that doesn't sound like the
Or
difference in
maybe
the
we were just old
generations is.
fogies. We're like, they're not music. It isn't like it used to be.
No, 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 no. I mean, I wasn't
Which
alive in
is
like the
funny.
1950s, but like you listen, I don't know. I've seen a couple of things floating around of like them interviewing like boomers when they were teenagers, about what they thought the future was going to be, and they were quite pessimistic actually.
They were quite what?
'Cause
Sorry.
pessimistic actually, and one of the things I saw
Well,
because of the bomb.
yeah. Well, that's why is because they were riding off the privilege of the economy and being in the hub of empire, right? Because everything
Hmm.
started to be exported out with the slave labor and all that, and then everything imported, all the luxuries and stuff, small luxuries, and so everything there was no inflation. This was like the boom. That's what boomers. That's why
Yeah.
they had that perspective, obviously, right? Because they didn't have the foresight to see what was become of the
Oh,
world.
hey, Belle, how you doing? Belle's here.
Oh, hey,
You're lucky
Belle.
we haven't started yet.
Yeah, right. We've been talking for a while. I think over an hour.
Yeah, yeah. I may have to go inside at some point. Either my phone's gonna die or I'm gonna wilt because it's supposed to be like 95 degrees here
That's
today.
okay because I think I should probably start reading. Like
Yeah.
this is what happens. We go on a tangent, talk too much.
Hey, it's fun. It's fun.
It's fun. No, it does give me a little breather to get things out off my chest, right? Because there's only so many people
Yeah.
that want to hear about what I have to say about all this shit. There's a lot of people that want to
Yeah.
know, right?
A
Which
lot of no, yeah, yeah, yeah. Or yeah.
or if
They don't want to discuss it.
they
They just want to yell at
disagree
you about
because
it.
like or something, and like I'm just like
Yeah.
they don't want to have that argue with me because they know I'll win. But no, you know what
Or
I
that's
mean?
what I'm saying. It's not that people don't know, it's that they want to yell at you about it. They want to like yell their opinions at you.
Yeah, yeah. Or just want to have an
Ugh.
echo chamber to agree with. And if I challenge what they say, they don't like that. Oh,
Right. Which, and that's loving to learn involves a lot of humility, because before you can learn something, you have to admit to yourself you don't know it first.
hmm. Well, that's what I find too. Even like with some of the people that I've come across as of late, where they think they have it all figured out in the terms of like politics, not just like
Yeah.
say the trans stuff, but other politics. And what I see is them just sort of going along with the grift that they've been given on the right.
Yeah. Oh my
And I'm just
God.
like, really? You're not even thinking about this, are you? Because like the way that they see it's like, oh, so the quote unquote left, not left, liberal, was wrong out like about this. So that means the other side is right about everything. That's where like how far their like understanding goes. I'm like, really?
This is kindergarten level shit.
That is I exactly. And I'm like, and then they want to be like, well, don't tell me what to. I'm like, I'm not, but I'm giving you actual detailed information and facts. Why?
See, I
Because
feel like the right.
for one, I
Yeah.
didn't start thinking about other political things because of the transgender shit. I was a political activist way before that. So
Right.
that's my foray. So I'm trying to give you some facts, and you don't want to hear it because you like the grift.
Well, I think the
It
right
feels
is
like a
doing a better
community to
job
you.
right now. I think the right is doing a better job right now of flattering people's egos than telling them they're
Yeah, but
smart.
they're starting to falter though. A lot of what's been happening has really gotten people not on board. I mean, even like people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are just like, fuck you, Trump. Like,
Nice.
I got handed to Candace Owens. I do not agree with her on most things, but she at least I could give her props for keeping to her moral efficacy because that's what's turned her around. Why she got so much trouble that she got fired was she's like, stop killing children,
Mm,
right? And she
yeah.
hasn't faltered on that. She hasn't faltered that. It has been really like
The idea that
anti-war.
anyone can object to that statement.
You think, right? But like,
Ugh.
yeah. But I mean, all of her other takes are shit. But at least, like, when it comes down to, at least when it comes to not killing children, she's like at least on the right side. You would think, you would hope more people would be, but I mean,
I feel
doesn't
like
really seem
nobody's
like it
wrong
in the
all
long
the
run.
time.
Hmm?
I feel like nobody's wrong all the time.
Yeah, no, not everyone is wrong all the time. No one's all right all the time either. But
No, yeah. So I mean,
that's the
it's
problem. That's why it's annoying, is because it's like, okay, so you're going along with the grift, but the fact that you think that they must be right with everything, I'm not going to look into it because they were right on
right.
transgender stuff. That's
That's
like saying like they're all going to be right, and then the other ones are all going to be wrong. That's so black and white. That's so like,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
school
and
level of
I
thinking.
grew up. My mom used to have Russian Limbaugh playing on the radio every day when I was a kid. I've been listening to the right wing grift for 30 years, like legit.
Ugh, yeah,
And so I recognized it instantly. I was like, oh God, they've latched onto this. Oh God, this is bad. Oh
yeah,
God. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the
and
thing. There's going to be aspects where one side is going to have like the position on the being right, and then the other side is going to be right some of the times with their other positions, but they're both going to
right,
be wrong at the different times. And the thing is, both sides, the polarizing political sides, are still have the same goal. They just different aesthetic and different way of
yeah,
getting there.
right,
And so when you think of it that way, then you can be outside the box and realize that they're going when one side's going to be right on something, the other one's going to be wrong. But then at the same time, vice versa happens as well. So you
yeah,
got to, instead of just listening to what they're saying, look shit up, read a book, like get
right.
step back, learn that,
That's
learn
what I
how
was
to
gonna say.
see
Books are
propaganda.
about to become
Cite
your
if there's
best
no sources
friend.
cited, then you don't believe that shit. Then you know it's propaganda. Like
Right.
like, ugh, I don't. How do you go about your like life in this idea that's so black and white, like kindergarten thinking? I just boggles my mind.
Well, you
But
just said it. They're all overworked and underpaid and
that's
exhausted,
exactly, that's
and
why I give some leeway, right? When people get sort
yeah,
of, when they do figure it out that that they've been tricked,
right.
I give
That's
them
not
leeway
the
because
time.
like there's only
Exactly,
so much I can
exactly.
like ask of people. Like if they cannot
Right,
literally contemplate it, then it's not like they are going about doing things maliciously if
you're
they think
right,
that they're right.
right.
But
It's not. It's not. Oh, why didn't you think of that before? It's oh, you're thinking. That's good.
yeah, right, we should
Yeah,
encourage this. We should
right. Yes,
encourage the thinking.
exactly, exactly. Hello, Devil Jen, saying hi. And Stell says, how's you? Pretty good, pretty good. We went on about that for too long earlier. I'm sorry to ask you to go and rewatch it, but like, I've been through this whole roller coaster with my health for like 6 months, and it turned out I'm just really tired.
Yeah, we did
And
have a
she's
nice
going
talk about that.
camping. And she's
Yeah,
going camping. So next week, I guess we're going to do my reading, and then we're going to skip the third week,
yeah.
is what we decided. Yeah. Where am I from? I am in Tennessee. Where are you from? And we're going to be reading
Yeah, we gotta get to
some of the
reading.
more nitty gritty bits, I guess, of Caliban and the Witch today.
Yeah, we're gonna go. I think this covers mechanical philosophy, which is about the body, and so and that relates to obviously the body that they burn.
Yeah, obviously the female body's involved in it. Oh, Pakistan, wow. They'll have we have fun camping, Kitty.
Yeah. Oh wow, Pakistan, a little far away.
Yeah,
Well, I hope
yeah,
you're. I hope you enjoy this. It's gonna be a
right, yeah,
an interesting
yeah,
read. Caliban and the
yeah,
Witch.
yep. It's only one example of how the powers that be used that against the populace to, fleece and manipulate and
Yeah.
just, you know.
Okay,
That's
so
how
I'm
I'm
gonna.
reading it anyway. I'm taking it as this is a case study
This is
and
yeah. The case in
something that
history.
is basically also happening as we speak. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
very much similarities in our times now.
Yep,
So I'm going to be plugging in myself in my mic in and
right.
start this up. So we're
And
going to
I'm going to
start.
be muted while she's talking, so we're
Yeah,
just going to have a little discussion afterwards. What we're
yeah.
going to do. So.
All right. So this is day 9 with chapter 3, The Great Caliban. All right. So The Great Caliban. Quote, life is but a motion of limbs, for what is the heart but a spring, and the nerves but so many strings, and the joints but so many wheels, giving motion to the whole body. End quote from Hobbes in Leviathan, circa 1650. Quote, yet I will be a more noble creature, and at the very time when my natural necessities debase me into the condition of the beast, my spirit shall rise and soar and fly up towards the employment of the angels. End quote by Cotton Mather, diary of 1680 to 1708. One of the preconditions for capitalist development was the process that Michel Foucault defined as the disciplining of the body, which in my view consisted of an attempt by state and church to transform the individual's powers into labor power. This chapter examines how this process was conceived and mediated in the philosophical debates of the time and the strategic interventions which it generated. It was in the 16th century, in the areas of Western Europe most affected by the Protestant Reformation and the rise of the mechanical bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie, then we see the emerging in every field, the stage, the pulpit, the political and philosophical imagination, a new concept of the person. Its most ideal embodiment is the Shakespearean Prospero of The Tempest, circa 1612, who combines the celestial spirituality of Ariel and the brutish materiality of the Caliban. Yet he betrays an anxiety over the equilibrium achieved that rules out any pride for man's unique position in the great chain of being. In defeating Caliban, Prospero must admit that, quote, this thing of darkness is mine, end quote, thus reminding his audience that our human partaking of the angel and the beast is problematic indeed. In the 17th century, what in Prospero's remains a subliminal foreboding is formalized as a conflict between reason and the passions of the body, which reconceptualizes classic Judeo-Christian themes to produce a new anthropological paradigm. The outcome is reminiscent of the medieval skirmishes between angels and devils for the possession of the departing soul, but the conflict is now staged within the person, who was reconstructed as a battlefield, where opposite elements clash for domination. On the one side, there are the forces of reason, prudence, sense of responsibility, self-control. On the other, the low instincts of the body, lewdness, idleness, systematic dissipation of one's vital energies. The battle is fought on many fronts because reason must be vigilant against the attacks carnal self and prevent, quote, the wisdom of the flesh, end quote, which was in Luther's words, from corrupting the powers of the mind. In the extreme case, the person becomes a terrain for a war of all against all. Quote, let me be nothing if within the compass of myself I do not find the battle of Lepanto, passions against reason, reason against faith, faith against the devil, and my conscience against all. End quote, by Thomas Brown, circa 1928. In the course of this process, a change occurs in the metaphorical field as a philosophical representation of individual psychology borrows images from the body politics of the state, disclosing a landscape inhabited by rulers and rebellious subjects, multitudes and sedations, chains, and imperious commands, and, with Thomas Brown, even the executioner. As we shall see, this conflict between reason and the body, described by the philosophers as a riotous confrontation between the better and the lower sorts, cannot be ascribed only to the Baroque taste for the figurative, later to be purged in favor of a more masculine language. The battle which the 17th century discourse on the person imagines unfolding in the microcosm of the individual has arguably a foundation in the reality of the time. It is an aspect of that broader process of social reformation, whereby in the Age of Reason, the rising bourgeoisie attempted to remold the subordinate classes in conformity with the needs of the developing capitalist economy. It was in the attempt to form a new type of individual that the bourgeoisie engaged in that battle against the body that has become its historic mark. According to Max Weber, the reform of the body is at the core of the bourgeois ethic, because capitalism makes acquisition the ultimate purpose of life instead of treating it as a means for the satisfaction of the needs. Thus, it requires that we forfeit all spontaneous enjoyment of life. Capitalism also attempts to overcome our natural state by breaking the barriers of nature and by lengthening the working day beyond the limits set by the sun, the seasonal cycles, and the body itself, as constituted in pre-industrial society. Marx, too, sees the alienation from the body as a distinguishing trait of the capitalist work relation. By transforming labor into a commodity, capitalism causes workers to submit their activity to an external order over which they have no control and with which they cannot identify. Thus, the labor process becomes a ground of self-estrangement. The worker, quote, only feels himself outside his work, and in his work feels outside himself. He is at home when he is not working, and when he is working is not at home, end quote, from Marx. Circa 1906, volume of Des Capital. Furthermore, with the development of the capitalist economy, the worker becomes, though only formally, the free owner of his labor power, which, unlike the slave, he can place at the disposal of the buyer for a limited period of time. This implies that, quote, he must constantly look upon his labor power, his energies, his faculties, as his own property, his own commodity, end quote, from Marx, circa 1906, volume 1, De Capital. This too leads to a sense of disassociation from the body, which becomes reified, reduced to an object with which the person ceases to be intimately identified. The image of a worker freely alienating his labor or confronting his body as capital to be delivered to the highest bidder refers to a working class already molded by the capitalist work discipline. But only in the second half of the 19th century can we glimpse that type of worker, temperate, prudent, responsible, proud to possess a watch, and capable of looking upon the imposed conditions of the capitalist mode of production as self-evident laws of nature, that personifies the capitalist utopia and is the point of reference for Marx. The situation was radically different in the period of primitive accumulation, when the emerging bourgeoisie discovered that the liberation of labor power, that is, the expropriation of the peasantry from the common lands, was not sufficient to force the dispossessed proletarians to accept wage labor. Unlike Milton Adams, who, upon being expelled from the Garden of Eden, set forth cheerfully for a life dedicated to work, the expropriated peasants and artisans did not peacefully agree to work for a wage. Oh, come on. More often they became beggars, vagabonds, or criminals. A long process would be required to produce a disciplined workforce. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the hatred for wage labor was so intense that many proletarians preferred to risk the gallows rather than submit to the new conditions of work. This was the first capitalist crisis, one far more serious than all of the commercial crises that threatened the foundations of the capitalist system in the first phase of its development. As is well known, the response of the bourgeoisie was the institution of a true regime of terror implemented through the intensification of penalties, particularly those punishing the crimes against property. The introduction of bloody laws against vagabonds intended to bind workers to the jobs imposed on them, as once the serfs had been bound to the land, and the multiplication of executions. In England alone, 72,000 people were hung by Henry I can't read that. Let's just say 8th. I don't know. One of the kings during the 38 years of his reign, and the massacre continued into the late 16th century. In the 1570s, 300 to 400 rogues were devoured by the gallows in one place or another every year. In Devon alone, 74 people were hanged just in 1598. But the violence of ruling class was not confined to the repression of transgressors. It also aimed at a radical transformation of the person, intended to eradicate in the proletariat any form of behavior not conducive to the imposition of a stricter work discipline. The dimensions of this attack are apparent in the social legislation that, by the middle of the 16th century, was introduced in England and France. Games were forbidden, particularly games of chance, that, besides being useless, undermined the individual's sense of responsibility and work ethic. Taverns were closed, along with public baths. Nakedness was penalized, as were many other unproductive forms of sexuality and sociality. It was forbidden to drink, swear, and curse. It was in the course of this vast process of social engineering that a new concept of the body and a new policy toward it began to be shaped. The novelty was that the body was attacked as the source of all evils, and yet it was studied with the same passion that in the same year animated the investigation of celestial motion. Why was the body so central to state politics and intellectual discourse? One is tempted to answer that this obsession with the body reflects the fear that the proletariat inspired in the ruling class. It was the fear felt by the bourgeois or the noblemen alike, who, wherever they went, in the streets or on their travels, were besieged by a threatening crowd, begging them or preparing to rob them. It was also the fear felt by those who presided over the administration of the state, whose consolidation was continuously undermined, but also determined by the threat of riots and social disorders. Yet there was more. We must not forget that the bigotry and riotous proletariat who forced the rich to travel by carriage to escape its assaults, or to go to bed with 2 pistols under the pillow, was the same social subject who increasingly appeared as the source of all wealth. It was the same of whom the mercantilists, the first economists of the capitalist society, of capitalist society, never tired of repeating, though not without second thoughts, that the more the better, often deploring that so many bodies were wasted on the gallows. Many decades were to pass before the concept of the value of labor entered the pantheon of economic thought. But that work, industry, more than land or any other natural wealth, is the primary source of accumulation was a truth well understood at a time when the low level of technological development made human beings the most important productive resource. As Thomas Mumm, the son of a London merchant and spokesman for the mercantilist position, put it, quote, "We know that our own natural wares do not yield us so much profit as our industry, for iron in the mines is of no great worth when it is compared with the employment and advantage it yields, being digged, tried, transported, bought, sold, cast into ordnance, muskets, wrought into anchors, bolts, spikes, nails, and the like, for the use of ships, houses, carts, coaches, plows, and and other instruments of tillage, end quote. Even Shakespeare's Prospero insists on this crucial economic fact in a little speech on the value of labor, which he delivers to Miranda after she manifests her utter disgust with Caliban. Quote, "But as 'tis, we cannot miss him. He does make our fire, fetch in our wood, and serves in our office that profit us," end quote, from The Tempest, Act 1, Scene 2. The body then came to the foreground of social policies because it appeared not only as a beast inert to the stimuli of work, but also as the container of labor power, a means of production, the primary work machine. This is why, in the strategies adopted by the state towards it, we find much violence, but also much interest, and the study of bodily motions and proprieties become the starting point for most of the theoretical speculation of the age, whether aiming with Descartes to assert the immortality of the soul or to investigate with Hobbes the premises of social governability. Indeed, one of the central concerns of the new mechanical philosophy was the mechanics of the body, whose constitutive elements, from the circulation of the blood to the dynamics of speech, from the effects of sensations to voluntary and involuntary motions, were taken apart and classified in all of their components and possibilities. Descartes' Treatise of Man, published in 1664, is a true anatomical handbook, though the anatomy it performs is as much psychological as physical. A basic task of Descartes' enterprise is to institute an ontological divide between a purely mental and a purely physical domain. Every manner, attitude, and sensation is thus defined. Their limits are marked, the possibilities weighed with such a thoroughness that one has the impression that the book of human nature has been opened for the first time, or more likely that a new land has been discovered and the conquistadors are setting out to chart its paths, compile the list of its natural resources, assess its advantages and disadvantages. In this, Hobbes and Descartes were representatives of their time. The care they display in exploring the details of corporeal and psychological reality reappears in the Puritan analysis of inclinations and individual talents, which was the beginning of a bourgeois psychology explicitly studying, in this case, all human faculties from the viewpoint of their potential for work and contribution to discipline. A further sign of a new curiosity about the body and of a change in manners and customs from former times, whereby the body can be opened, in the words of a 17th century physician, was also the development of anatomy as a scientific discipline following its long relegation to the intellectual underground in the Middle Ages. But while the body emerged as the main protagonist in the philosophical and medical scenes, a striking feature of these investigations is the degraded conception they formed of it. The anatomy theater discloses to the public eye a disenchanted, desecrated body, which only in principle can be conceived as the site of the soul, but actually is treated as a separate reality. To the eye of the anatonomist, the body is a factory, as shown by the title that Andreas Vesalius gave to his epochal work on the dissecting industry, De Luminani Corporis Fabrica, circa 1543. In mechanical philosophy, the body is described by analogy with the machine, often with emphasis on its inertia. The body is conceived as brute matter, wholly divorced from any rational qualities. It does not know, does not want, does not feel. The body is a pure collection of members, Descartes exclaims in his 1634 Discourse on Method. He is echoed by Nicholas Malebranche, who, in the Dialogues on Metaphysics and on Religion, circa 1688, raises the crucial question, can a body think? To promptly answer, no, beyond a doubt, for all the modifications of such an extension consist only in certain relations of distance, and it is obvious that such relations are not perceptions, reasonings, pleasures, desires, feelings, in a word, thoughts, end quote. For Hobbes as well, the body is a conglomerate of mechanical motions that, lacking autonomous power, operates on the basis of an external causation, in a play of attractions and aversions, where everything is regulated as in an automation, end quote. It is true, however, of mechanical philosophy that Michael Foucault maintains with regard to the 17th and 18th century social disciplines. Here, too, we find a different perspective from that of medieval asceticism, where the degradation of the body had a purely negative function, seeking to establish the temporal and illusory nature of earthly pleasures, and consequently the need to renounce the body itself. In mechanical philosophy, we perceive a new bourgeois spirit that circulates, classifies, makes distinctions, and degrades the body only in order to rationalize its faculties, aiming not just at intensifying its subjection, but at maximizing its social utility. Far from renouncing the body, mechanical theorists seek to conceptualize it in ways that make its operations intelligible and controllable. Thus, the sense of pride, rather than commiseration, with which Descartes insists that this, quote, machine, as he persistently calls the body in the Treatise of Man, is just an automation, and its death is no more to be mourned than the breaking of a tool. Certainly, neither Hobbes nor Descartes spent many words on economic matters, and it would be absurd to read into their philosophies the everyday concerns of the English or Dutch merchants. Yet, we cannot fail to see the important contribution which their speculations on human nature gave to the emerging capitalist science of work. To pose the body as mechanical matter, void of any intrinsic teleology, the occult virtues attributed to it by both natural magic and the popular superstitions of the time, was to make intelligible the possibility of subordinating it to a work process that increasingly relied on uniform and predictable forms of behavior. Once its devices were deconstructed and it was itself reduced to a tool, the body could be opened up to an infinite manipulation of its powers and possibilities. One could investigate the vices and limits of imagination, the virtues of habit, the uses of fear, how certain passions can be avoided or neutralized, and how they can be more rationally utilized. In this sense, mechanical philosophy contributed to increasing the ruling class control over the natural world, control over human nature being the first, most indispensable step, just as nature reduced to a great machine could be conquered and, in Bacon's words, quote, penetrated in all her secrets, end quotes. Likewise, the body, emptied of its occult forces, could be caught in a system of subjection, whereby its behavior could be calculated, organized, technically thought, and invested of power relations, end quote. In Descartes' body and nature are identified, for both are made of the same particles and act in obedience to uniform physical laws set in motion by God's will. Thus, not only is the Cartesian body pauperized and expropriated from any magical virtue in the great ontological divide which Descartes institutes between the essence of humanity and its accidental conditions, the body is divorced from the person. It is literally dehumanized. Quote, I am not this body, end quote, Descartes insists throughout his meditations, circa 1641. And indeed, in his philosophy, the body joins a continuum of clock-like matter that the unfettered will can now contemplate as the object of its domination. As we will see, Descartes and Hobbes express two different projects with respect to corporeal reality. In Descartes, the reduction of the body to mechanical matter allows for the development of mechanisms of self-management that make the body the subject of the will. In Hobbes, by contrast, the mechanization of the body justifies the total submission of the individual to the power of the state. In both, however, the outcome is a redefinition of bodily attributes that makes the body, ideally, at least, suited for the regularity and automation demanded by the capitalist work discipline. I emphasize ideally because in the years in which Descartes and Hobbes were writing their treatise, the ruling class had to confront a corporeality that was far different from that appearing in their prefigurations. It is difficult, in fact, to reconcile the insubordinate bodies that haunt the literature of the Iron Century with the clock-like images by which the body is represented in Descartes and Hobbes' works. Yet, though seemingly removed from the daily affairs of the class struggle, it is in the speculations of the two philosophers that we find first conceptualized the development of the body into a working machine, one of the main tasks of primitive accumulation. When, for example, Hobbes declares that, quote, the heart is but a spring and the joints so many wheels, end quote, we perceive in his words a bourgeois spirit, whereby not only is work the condition and motive of existence of the body, but the need is felt to transform all bodily powers into work powers. This project is a clue to understanding why so much of the philosophical and religious speculation of the 16th and 17th centuries consists of a true vivisection of the human body, whereby it was decided which of its properties could live and which instead had to die. It was a social alchemy that did not turn base metals into gold, but bodily powers into work powers. For the same relation that capitalism introduced between land and work was also beginning to command the relation between the body and the labor. While labor was beginning to appear as a dynamic force, infinitely capable of development, the body was seen as inert, sterile matter that only the will could move, in a condition similar to that which Newton's physics established between mass and motion, where the mass tends to inertia unless a force is applied to it. Like the land, the body had to be cultivated and first of all broken up so that it could relinquish its hidden treasures. For while the body is the condition of the existence of labor power, it is also its limit, as the main element of resistance to its expenditure. It was not sufficient then to decide that in itself the body had no value. The body had to die so that labor power could live. What died was the concept of the body as a receptacle of magical powers that had prevailed in the medieval world. In reality, it was destroyed, for in the background of the new philosophy we find a vast initiative by the state, whereby what the philosophers classified as irrational was branded as crime. This state intervention was a necessary subtext of mechanical philosophy. Knowledge can only become power if it can enforce its prescriptions. This means that the mechanical body, the body machine, could not have become a model of social behavior without the destruction by the state of a vast range of pre-capitalist beliefs, practices, and social subjects whose existence contradicted the regularization of corporeal behavior promised by mechanical philosophy. This is why, at the peak of the age of reason, the age of skepticism and mythological doubt, we have a ferocious attack on the body, well supported by many who subscribed to the new doctrine. This is how we must read this attack against witchcraft and against that magical view of the world, which, despite the efforts of the Church, had continued to prevail on a popular level through the Middle Ages. At the basis of magic was an animistic conception of nature that did not admit to any separation between matter and spirit, and thus imagined the cosmos as a living organism populated by occult forces where every element was in sympathetic relation with the rest. In this perspective, where nature was viewed as a universe of signs and signatures marking invisible affinities that had to be deciphered, every element, herbs, plants, metals, and most of all the human body, had virtues and powers peculiar to it. Thus, a variety of practices were designed to appropriate the secrets of nature and bend its powers to the human will. From palmistry to divination, from the use of charms to sympathetic healing, magic opened a vast number of possibilities. There was magic designed to win card games, to play unknown instruments, to become invisible, to win somebody's love, to gain immunity in war, to make children sleep. Eradicating these practices was a necessary condition for the capitalist rationalization of work, since magic appeared as an illicit form of power and an instrument to obtain what one wanted without work, that is, a refusal to work,
a refusal of work in action. Magic kills industry, lamented Francis Bacon, admitting that nothing repelled him so much as the assumption that one could obtain rules with a few idle expedients rather than the sweat of one's brow. Magic, moreover, rested upon a qualitative conception of space and time that precluded a regularization of the labor process. How could the new entrepreneurs impose regular work patterns on a proletariat anchored in the belief that there are lucky and unlucky days, that is, days on which one can travel and others on which one should not move from home, days on which to marry and others on which every enterprise should be cautiously avoided? Equally incompatible with the capitalist work discipline was a conception of the cosmos that attributed special powers to the individual. The magnetic look, the power to make oneself invisible, to leave one's body, to chain the will of others by magical incantations. It would not be fruitful to investigate whether these powers were real or imaginary. It can be said that all pre-capitalist societies have believed in them, and in recent times we have witnessed a revaluation of practices that, at the time we refer to, would have been condemned as witchcraft. Let us mention the growing interest in parapsychology and biofeedback practices that are increasingly applied even by mainstream media or mainstream medicine. The revival of magical beliefs is possible today because it no longer represents a social threat. The mechanization of the body is so constitutive of the individual that, at least in industrialized countries, giving space to the belief in occult forces does not jeopardize the regularity of social behavior. Astrology, too, can be allowed to return, with the certainty that even the most devoted consumer of astral charts will automatically consult the watch before going to work. However, this was not an option for the 17th century ruling class, which, in this initial and experimental phase of capitalist development, had not yet achieved the social control necessary to neutralize the practice of magic, nor could they functionally integrate magic into the organization of social life. From their viewpoint, it hardly mattered whether the powers that people claimed to have or aspire to have were real or not, for the very existence of magical beliefs was a source of social insubordination. Take, for example, the widespread belief in the possibility of finding hidden treasures by the help of magical charms. This was certainly an impediment to the institution of a rigorous and spontaneous accepted work discipline. Equally threatening was the use of the lower classes made of prophecies, which, particularly during the English Civil War, as already in the Middle Ages, served to formulate a program of struggle. Prophecies are not simply the expression of fatalistic resignation. Historically, they have been a means by which the poor have externalized their desires, given legitimacy to their plans, and have been spurred to action. Hobbes recognized this when he warned that, quote, "There is nothing that so well directs men in their deliberations as the force of the sequels of their actions, prophecy being many times the principal cause of the events foretold," end quote. But regardless of the dangers which magic posed, the bourgeoisie had to combat its power because it undermined the principle of individual responsibility, as magic placed the determinants of social action in the realms of the stars, out of their reach and control. Thus, in the rationalization of space and time that characterized the philosophical speculation of the 16th and 17th centuries, prophecy was replaced with the calculation of probabilities, whose advantage from a capitalist viewpoint is that here the future can be anticipated only insofar as the regularity and immutability of the system is assumed. That is, only insofar as it assumed that the future will be like the past, and no major change, no revolution, will upset the coordinates of individual decision-making. Similarly, the bourgeoisie had to combat the assumption that it is possible to be in two places at the same time. For the fixation of the body in space and time, that is, the individual's spatio-temporal identification, is an essential condition for the regularity of the work process. The incompatibility of magic with the capitalist work discipline and the requirement of social control is one of the reasons why a campaign of terror was launched against it by the state, a terror applied without reservations by many who are presently considered among the founders of scientific rationalism. Jean Bodin, Mersenne, the mechanical philosopher and member of the Royal Society Richard Boyle, and Newton's teacher Isaac Barrow. Even the materialist Hobbes, while keeping his distance, gave his approval. Quote, "As for witches," he wrote, "I think not that their witchcraft is any real power, but yet that they are justly punished for the false belief that they have, that they can do such mischief, joined with their purpose to do it if they can." End quote. He added that if these superstitions were eliminated, quote, "men would be much more fitted than they are for civil obedience." End quote. Hobbes was well advised. The stakes on which witches and other practitioners of magic died, and the chambers in which their tortures were executed, were a laboratory in which much social discipline was sedimented, and much knowledge about the body was gained. Here, those irrationalities were eliminated that stood in the way of the transformation of the individual and social body into a set of predictable and controllable mechanisms. And it was here again that the scientific use of torture was born, for blood and torture were necessary to breed an animal capable of regular, homogeneous, and uniform behavior, indelibly marked with the memory of the new rules. A significant element in this context was the condemnation of maleficum, some sort of Latin word, of abortion and contraception, which consigned the female body, the uterus reduced to a machine for the reproduction of labor, into the hands of the state and the medical profession. I will return later to this point in the chapter on the witch hunt, where I argued that the persecution of the witches was the climax of the state intervention against the proletarian body in the modern era. Here, let us stress that despite the violence deployed by the state, the disciplining of the proletariat proceeded slowly throughout the 17th century and into the 18th century in the face of a strong resistance that not even the fear of execution could overcome. An emblematic example of this resistance is analyzed by Peter Linebaugh in his The Tyburn Riots Against the Surgeons. Linebaugh reports that in early 18th century London, at the time of the execution, a battle was fought by the friends and relatives of the condemned to prevent the assistance of the surgeons from seizing the corpse for use in anatomical studies. This battle was fierce because the fear of being dissected was no less than the fear of death. Dissection eliminated the possibility that the condemned might revive after a poorly executed hanging, as often occurred in 18th century England. A magical conception of the body was spread among the people according to which the body continued to live after death, and by death was enriched with new powers. It was believed that the dead possessed the power to come back again and exact their last revenge upon the living. It was also believed that the corpse had healing virtues, so that crowds of sick people gathered around the gallows, expecting from the limbs of the dead effects as miraculous as those attributed to the touch of the king. Dissection thus appeared as a further infamy, a second and greater death, and the condemned spent their last days making sure that their bodies should not be abandoned into the hands of surgeons. This battle, significantly occurring in the foot of the gallows, demonstrates both the violence that presided over the scientific rationalization of the world and the clash of two opposite concepts of the body, two opposite investments in it. On one side, we have the concept of the body that sees it endowed with the powers even after death. The corpse does not inspire repulsion and is not treated as something rotten or irreducibly alien. On the other hand, the body is seen as dead even when still alive, insofar as it is conceived as a mechanical device, to be taken apart just like any other machine. At the gallows, standing at the conjunction of the Tyburn and Edgware roads, Peter Linebaugh writes, quote, "We find that the history of the London poor and the history of English science intersect," end quote. This was not a coincidence, nor was it a coincidence that the progress of anatomy depended on the ability of the surgeons to snatch the bodies of the hanged at Tyburn. The course of scientific rationalization was intimately connected to the attempt by the state to impose its control over unwilling workforce. This attempt was even more important as a determinant of new attitudes towards the body than the development of technology. As David Dickinson argues, connecting the new scientific worldview to the increasing mechanization of production can only hold as a metaphor. Certainly, the clock and the automated devices that so much intrigued Descartes and his contemporaries, like hydraulically moved statues, provided models for the new science and for the speculations of mechanical philosophy on the movement of the body. It is also true that starting from the 17th century, anatomy and allergies were drawn from the workshops of the manufacturers. The arms were viewed as the levers, the heart as the pump, the lungs as bellows, the eyes as lenses, the fist as a hammer. But these mechanical metaphors reflect not the influence of technology per se, but the fact that the machine was becoming the model of social behavior. The inspirational force of the need for social control is evident even in the field of astronomy. A classic example is that of Edmund Halley, the secretary of the Royal Society, who, in concomitance with the appearance in 1695 of the comet later named after him, organized clubs all over England in order to demonstrate the predictability of the natural phenomena and to dispel the popular belief that comets announced social disorders. That the path of scientific rationalization intersected with the disciplining of the social body is even more evident in the social sciences. We can see, in fact, that their development was premised on the homogenization of social behavior and the construction of a prototypical individual to whom all would be expected to conform. In Marxist terms, this is an abstract individual, constructed in a uniform way as a social average and subject to a radical decharacterization so that all of its faculties can be grasped only in their most standardized aspects. The construction of this new individual was the basis for the development of what William Petty would later call, using Hobbes' terminology, political arithmetics, a new science that was to study every form of social behavior in terms of numbers, weights, and measures. Petty's project was realized with the development of statistics and demography. Which perform on the social body the same operations that anatomy performs on the individual body, as they dissect the population and study its movements, from natality to mortality rates, from generational to occupational structures, in their most nauseated and regular aspects, also from the point of view of the abstraction process that the individual underwent in the transition to capitalism. We can see that the development of the human machine was the main technological leap, the main step in the development of the productive forces that took place in the period of primitive accumulation. We can see, in other words, that the human body and not the steam engine and not even the clock was the first machine developed by capitalism. But if the body is a machine, one problem immediately emerges: how to make it work. Two different models of body government derive from the theories of mechanical philosophy. On one side, we have the Cartesian model that, starting from the assumption of a purely mechanical body, postulates the possibility of developing in the individual mechanisms of self-discipline, self-management, and self-regulation, allowing for voluntary work relations and government based on consent. On the other side, there is a Hobbesian model that, denying the possibility of a body-free reason, externalizes the functions of command, consigning them to the absolute authority of the state. The development of a self-management theory, starting from the mechanization of the body, is the focus of the philosophy of Descartes, who, let us remember it, completed his intellectual formation not in the France of monarchical absolutism, but in the bourgeois Holland, so congenial to his spirit that he elected it as his abode. Descartes' doctrines have a double aim: to deny that human behavior can be influenced by external factors, such as the stars or celestial intelligences, and to free the soul from any bodily conditioning, thus making it capable of exercising an unlimited sovereignty over the body. Descartes believed that he could accomplish both tasks by demonstrating the mechanical nature of animal behavior. Nothing, he claimed in his Le Monde, circa 1633, causes so many errors as the belief that animals have a soul like ours. Thus, in preparation for his Treatise of Man, he devoted many months to studying the anatomy of animal organs. Every morning he went to the butcher to observe the quartering of the beasts. He even performed many vivifications, likely comforted by this belief that, being mere brutes, destitute of reason, the animals he dissected could not feel any pain. To be able to demonstrate the brutality of animals was essential for Descartes, because he was convinced that here he could find the answer to his questions concerning the location, nature, and extent of the power controlling human conduct. He believed that in the dissected animal he would find proof that the body is only capable of mechanical and involuntary actions, that, consequently, it is not constitutive of the person, and that the human essence therefore resides in purely immaterial faculties. The human body, too, is an automation for Descartes, but what differentiates man from the beast and confers upon him mastery over the surrounding world is the presence of thought. Thus, the soul, which Descartes displaces from the cosmos and the sphere of corporeality, returns at the center of his philosophy, endowed with infinite power under the guise of individual reason and will. Placed in a soulless world and in a body machine, the Cartesian man, like Prospero, could then break his magic wand, becoming not only responsible for his own actions, but seemingly the center of all powers. In being divorced from its body, the rational self certainly lost its solidarity with its corporeal reality and with nature. Its solitude, however, was to be that of a king in the Cartesian model of the person. There is no egalitarian dualism between the thinking head and the body machine, only a master-slave relation, since the primary task of the will is to dominate the body and the natural world. In the Cartesian model of the person, then, we see the same centralization of the functions of command that in the same period was occurring at the level of the state. As the task of the state was to govern the social body, so the mind became sovereign in the new personality. Descartes concedes that the supremacy of the mind over the body is not easily achieved, as reason must confront its inner contradictions. Thus, in The Passions of the Soul, circa 1650, he introduces us to the prospect of a constant battle between the lower and higher faculties of the soul, which he describes in almost military terms, appealing to our need to be brave and to gain the proper arms to resist the attacks of our passions. We must be prepared to suffer temporary defeat, for our will might not always be capable of changing or arresting its passions. It can, however, neutralize them by diverting its attention to some other thing, or it can restrain the movements to which they dispose the body. It can, in other words, prevent the passions from becoming actions. With the institution of a hierarchical relation between mind and body, Descartes developed the theoretical premises for the work discipline required by the developing capitalist economy. For the mind's supremacy over the body implies that the will can, in principle, control the needs, reactions, reflexes of the body. It can impose a regular order on its vital functions and force the body to work according to external specifications, independently of its desires. Most importantly, the supremacy of the will allows for the interiorization of the mechanisms of power. Thus, the counterpart of the mechanization of the body is the development of reason in its role as judge, inquisitor, manager, administrator. We find here the origins of bourgeois subjectivity as self-management, self-ownership, law, responsibility, with its corollaries of memory and identity. Here we also find the origin of that proliferation of micropowers that Michel Foucault had described in his critique of the juridico-discursive model of power. The Cartesian model shows how power can be decentered and diffused through the social body only to the extent that it is recentered in the person, which is thus reconstituted to a microstate. In other words, in being diffused, power does not lose its vector, that is, its content and its aims, but simply acquires the collaboration of the self in their promotion. Consider in this context the thesis proposed by Brian Easley, according to which the main benefit that Cartesian dualism offered to the capitalist class was the Christian defense of the immortality of the soul and the possibility of defeating the atheism implicit in natural magic, which was loaded with subversive implications. Easley argues in support of this view that the defense of religion was a central theme in Cartesianism, which particularly in its English version never forgot that no spirit, no God, no bishop, no king. Easley's argument is attractive, yet its insistence on the reactionary elements in Descartes' thought makes it impossible for Easley to answer a question that he himself raises. Why was the hold of Cartesianism in Europe so strong that even after Newtonian physics dispelled the belief in natural world void of occult powers, and even after the advent of religious tolerance, Cartesianism continued to shape the dominant worldview? I suggest that the popularity of Cartesianism among the middle and upper class was directly related to the program of self-mastery that Descartes' philosophy promoted. In its social implications, this program was as important to Descartes' elite contemporaries as the hegemonic relation between humans and nature that is legitimized by Cartesian dualism. The development of self-management, as in self-government, self-development, becomes an essential requirement in a capitalist socio-economic system in which self-ownership is assumed to be the fundamental social relation, and discipline no longer relies purely on external coercion. The social significance of Cartesian philosophy lies in part in the fact that it provides an intellectual justification for it. In this way, Descartes' theory of self-management defeats but also recuperates the active side of natural magic, for it replaces the unpredictable power of the magician built on the subtle manipulation of astral influences and correspondences with a power far more profitable, a power for which no soul has to be forfeited, generated only through the administration and domination of one's body, and by extension the administration and domination of the bodies of other fellow beings. We cannot say then, as easily does, repeating a criticism raised by Leibniz, that Cartesianism failed to translate its tenets into a set of practical regulations. That is, that it failed to demonstrate that to the philosophers, and above all to the merchants and manufacturers, how they would benefit from it in their attempt to control the matter of the world. If Cartesianism failed to give a technological translation of its precepts, it nonetheless provided precious information with which regard to the development of human technology. Its insights into the dynamics of self-control would lead to the construction of a new model of the person, wherein the individual would function at once as both master and slave. It is because it interpreted so well the requirements of the capitalist work discipline that Descartes' doctrine, by the end of the 17th century, had spread throughout Europe and survived even the advent of vitalistic biology, as well as the increasing obsolescence of the mechanistic paradigm. The reasons for Descartes' triumph are clear when we compare his account of the person with that of his English rival Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes' biological monism rejects the postulate of an immaterial mind or soul that is the basis of Descartes' concept of the person, and with it the Cartesian assumption that the human will can free itself from corporeal and instinctual determinism. For Hobbes, human behavior is a conglomerate of reflex actions that follow precise natural laws and compel the individual to insistently strive for power and domination over others. Thus, the war of all against all, in a hypothetical state of nature, and the necessity for an absolute power guaranteeing through fear and punishment the survival of the individual in society. Quote, "For the laws of nature as justice, equity, modesty, mercy, and in sum, doing to others as we would be done to of themselves, without the terror of some power to cause them to be observed, are contrary to our natural passions that carry us to partiality, pride, revenge, and the like." End quote. As is well known, Hobbes's political doctrine caused a scandal among his contemporaries, who considered it dangerous and subversive, so much so that, although he strongly desired it, Hobbes was never admitted to the Royal Society. Against Hobbes, it was the Cartesian model that prevailed, for it expressed the already active tendency to democratize the mechanisms of social discipline by attributing to the individual will that function of command which, in the Hobbesian model, is left solely in the hands of the state. As many critics of Hobbes maintained, the foundations of public discipline must be rooted in the hearts of men, for in the absence of an interior legislation, men are inevitably led to revolution. In Hobbes' complained Henry Moore, quote, "There is no freedom of will and consequently no remorse of conscience or reason, but only what pleases the one with the longest sword," end quote. More explicit was Alexander Ross, who observed that, quote, "It is the curb of conscience that restrains men from rebellion. There is no outward law or force more powerful. There is no judge so severe, nor torturer so cruel as an accusing conscience," end quote. The contemporaneous critique of Hobbes' atheism and materialism was clearly not motivated purely by religious concerns. His view of the individual as a machine moved only by its appetites and aversions was rejected not because it eliminated the concept of the human creature made in the image of God, but because it eliminated the possibility of a form of social control not depending wholly on the iron rule of the state. Here, I argue, is the main difference between Hobbes's philosophy and Cartesianism. This, however, cannot be seen if we insist on stressing the feudal elements of Descartes' philosophy, and in particular its defense of the existence of God, with all that this entailed, as a defense of the power of the state. If we do privilege the feudal Descartes, we miss the fact that the elimination of the religious element in Hobbes, i.e. the belief the existence of incorporeal substances, was actually a response to the democratization implicit in the Cartesian model of self-mastery, which Hobbes undoubtedly distrusted. As the activism of the Puritan sects during the English Civil War had demonstrated, self-mastery could easily turn into a subversive proposition. For the Puritans' appeal to return the management of one's behavior to the individual conscience and to make of one's conscience the ultimate judge of truth had become radicalized in the hands of the sectaries into an anarchic refusal of established authority. The example of the diggers and ranters and the scores of mechanic preachers who, in the name of the conscience, had opposed state legislation as well as private property, must have convinced Hobbes that the appeal to reason was a dangerously double-edged weapon. The conflict between Cartesian theism and Hobbesian materialism was to be resolved in time in their reciprocal assimilation, in the sense that, as always in history of capitalism, the decentralization of the mechanisms of command through their location in the individual was finally obtained only to the extent that a centralization occurred in the power of the state. To put this resolution in terms in which the debate was posed in the course of the English Civil War, quote, "Neither the diggers nor absolutism, but a well-calculated mixture of both, whereby the democratization of command would rest on the shoulders of a state always ready, like the Newtonian God, to reimpose order on the souls who proceeded too far in the ways of self-determination." The crux of the matter was lucidly expressed by Joseph Glanville, a Cartesian member of the Royal Society, who, in a polemic against Hobbes, argued that the crucial issue was the control of the mind over the body. This, however, did not simply imply the control of the ruling class, the mind par excellence, over the body proletariat, but equally important, the development of the capacity for self-control within the person. As Foucault has demonstrated, the mechanization of the body did not only involve the repression of desire, emotions, or forms of behavior that were to be eradicated. It also involved the development of new faculties in the individual that would appear as other with respect to the body itself and become the agents of its transformation. The product of this alienation from the body, in other words, was the development of individual identity, conceived precisely as otherness from the body and in perennial antagonism with it. The emergence of this alter ego and the determination of a historic conflict between mind and body represent the birth of the individual in capitalist society. It would become a typical characteristic of the individual molded by the capitalist work discipline to confront one's body as an alien reality to be assessed, developed, and kept at bay in order to obtain from it the desired results. Interesting. As we pointed out, among the lower classes, the development of self-management as self-discipline remained, for a long time, an object of speculation. How little self-discipline was expected from the common people can be judged from the fact that right into the 18th century, 160 crimes in England were punishable by death, and every year thousands of common people were transported to the colonies or condemned to the galleys. Moreover, when the populace appealed to reason, it was to voice anti-authoritarian demands, since self-mastery at the popular level meant the rejection of the established authority, rather than the interiorization of social rule. Indeed, through the 17th century, self-management remained a bourgeois prerogative. As Easley points out, when the philosophers spoke of man as a rational being, they made exclusive reference to a small elite made of white, upper-class adult males. The great multitude of men, wrote Henry Power, an English follower of Descartes, quote, resembles rather Descartes' automata, as they lack any reasoning power, and only as a metaphor can be called men, end quote. The better sorts agreed that the proletariat was of a different race. In their eyes, made suspicious by fear, the proletariat appeared as a great beast, a many-headed monster, wild, vociferous, given to excess. On individual level as well, a ritual vocabulary identified the masses as purely instinctual beings. Thus, in the Elizabethan literature, the beggar is always lusty and sturdy, rude, hot-headed, disorderly are the ever-recurrent terms in any discussion of the lower class. In this process, not only did the body lose all naturalistic connotations, but a body function began to emerge in the sense that the body became purely rational terrain, no longer signifying any specific reality, but identifying instead any impediment to the domination of reason. This means that while the proletariat became a body, the body became the proletariat, and in particular the weak, irrational female, the women in us, as Hamlet was to say, or the wild African being purely defined through its limiting function, that is, through its otherness from reason, and treated as an agent of internal subversion. Yet the struggle against this great beast was not solely directed against the lower sort of people. It was also interiorized by the dominant classes in the battle they waged against their own natural state. As we have seen, no less than Prospero, the bourgeoisie too had to recognize that this thing of darkness is mine. That is, the Caliban was part of itself. This awareness pervades the literary production of the 16th and 17th centuries. The terminology is revealing. Even those who did not follow Descartes saw the body as a beast that had to be kept insistently under control. Its instincts were compared to subjects to be governed. The senses were seen as a prison for the reasoning soul. Quote, who shall from this dungeon raise a soul enslaved so many ways? End quote, asked Andrew Marvell in his dialogue between the soul and the body. With bolts of bones that fettered stands in feet and manacled hands, were here blinded with an eye, and there deaf with the drumming of an ear, a soul hung up, as 'twere in chain of nerves and arteries and veins, end quote. The conflict between appetites and reason was a key theme in Elizabethan literature. While among the Puritans, the idea began to take hold that the Antichrist is in every man. Meanwhile, debate on education and on the nature of man, current among the middle sorts, centered around the body-mind conflict, posing the crucial question of whether human beings are voluntary or involuntary agents. But the definition of a new relation with the body did not remain at a purely ideological level, many practices began to appear in daily life to signal the deep transformations occurring in this domain. The use of cutlery, the development of shame with respect to nakedness, the advent of manners that attempted to regulate how one laughed, walked, sneezed, how one should behave at the table, and to what extent one could sing, joke, play. While the individual was increasingly disassociated from the body, the latter became an object of constant observation, as if it were an enemy. The body began to inspire fear and repugnance. The body of man is full of filth, declared Jonathan Edwards, whose attitude is typical of the Puritan experience, where the subjugation of the body was a daily practice. Particularly repugnant were those bodily actions that directly confronted men with their animality. Witness the case of one day when, urinating against a wall, he saw a dog doing the same. Quote, "Thought I what vile and mean things are the children of men in this mortal state. How much do our natural necessities abase us and place us in some regard on the same level with the very dogs. Accordingly, I resolved that it should be my ordinary practice, whenever I step to answer the one or the other necessity of nature, to make it an opportunity of shaping in my mind some holy, noble, divine thought." End quote. The great medical passion of the time, the analysis of analysis of excrements, from which manifold deductions were drawn on the psychological tendencies of the individual, is also to be traced back to this conception of the body as a receptacle of filth and hidden dangers. Clearly, this obsession with human excrements reflected in part the disgust that the middle class was beginning to feel for the non-productive aspects of the body, a disgust inevitably accentuated in the urban environment, where excrements pose a logistic problem in addition to appearing as pure waste. But in this obsession, we can also read the bourgeois need to regulate and cleanse the body machine from any element that could interrupt its activity and create dead time in the expenditure of labor. Excrements were so much analyzed and debased because they were the symbol of the ill humors that were believed to dwell in the body, to which every perverse tendency in human beings was attributed. For the Puritans, they became the visible sign of the corruption of human nature, a sort of original sin that had to be combated, subjugated, exercised. Hence the use of purges, emetics, enemas that were administered to children or the possessed to make them expel their deliveries. In this obsessive attempt to conquer the body in its most intimate recesses, we see reflected the same passion with which, in these same years, the bourgeoisie tried to conquer, we could say colonize, that alien, dangerous, unproductive being that in its eyes was the proletariat. For the proletarian was the great Caliban time. The proletarian was the material being by itself raw and undigested, that petty recommended to be consigned to the hands of the state, which in its prudence must better it, manage it, and shape it to its advantage. Like Caliban and the proletariat personified the ill humors that hid in the social body, beginning with the disgusting monsters of idleness and drunkenness. In the eyes of its masters, its life was pure inertia, but at the same time was uncontrolled passion and unbridled fantasy, ever ready to explode in righteous commentations. Above all, it was indiscipline, lack of productivity, incontinence, lust for immediate physical satisfaction, its utopia being not a life of labor, but the land of cockney, where houses were made of sugar, rivers of milk, and where not only could one obtain what one wished without effort, but one was paid to eat and drink. Quote, "To sleep 1 hour of deep sleep without waking, one earns 6 francs, and to drink well, one earns pistole. This country is jolly. One earns 10 francs a day to make love," end quote. The idea of transforming this lazy being who dreamt of life as a long carnival into an indefatigable worker must have seemed a desperate enterprise. It meant literally to turn the world upside down, but in a totally capitalist fashion, where inertia to command would be transformed into lack of desire and autonomous will where vice versa would become vis levatorvia, whatever that means, and where need would be experienced only as lack, abstinence, and eternal indigence. Hence this battle against the body, which characterized the early phase of capitalist development, and which has continued in different ways to our day. Hence that mechanization of the body, which was the project of the new natural philosophy, and the focal point for the first experiments in the organization of the state. If we move from the witch hunt to the speculations of mechanical philosophy and the Puritans' meticulous investigations of individual talents, we see that a single thread ties the seemingly divergent paths of social legislation, religious reform, and the scientific rationalization of the universe. This was the attempt to rationalize human nature, whose power had to be rechanneled and subordinated to the development and formation of labor power. As we have seen, the body was increasingly politicized. In this process, it was denaturalized and redefined as the other, the outer limit of social discipline. Thus, the birth of the body in the 17th century also marked its end, as the concept of the body would cease to define a specific organic reality and become instead a political signifier of class relations and of the shifting continuously redrawn boundaries which these relations produce in the map of human exploitation. And we're done.
Wow.
So, sorry if some of that was hard to understand. I didn't realize that some of the pages were cut off.
Oh,
You know,
I
like
didn't
on
either.
one side, like it didn't fully, go through the whole. Like it cut off words a little bit at the
Oh
edges.
dear.
Yeah, so I'm like trying to like read it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Uh-huh. Well, you did a good job. I was riveted, but that's because, like, okay, this is literally what my book is about. It's not, but it is. Like,
Mhm.
oh, this is the one I will say I'm definitely gonna go back and re-listen to at some point because
Yeah.
I may need to just read this book like next year,
It's
after I'm
a lot
done
to
with
read.
draft. No, it's
It's a
just
good
I want
one
to
to
finish
go
draft
back and
two.
redo, just like by yourself, even like just a few times, because there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, no. I mean, I want to work this into the novel subtly, as like essentially the wallpaper, the background. This is the background of everything that happens in my story.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing similarities. I can barely hear you. I don't know why.
Oh, that's weird.
I
I
know. I don't
just
know what's going
sitting
on.
in my house.
Hold on. Let
I'm
me
just
just see
sitting
if
on
I
the.
can do something.
I'm wearing my microphone, so I don't know.
See if I can plug it in and re-plug it out again. Can you say something? Say something.
Something.
Oh no,
Something.
it's still weird.
No.
Okay, I
Oh
don't know what
crap.
happened.
That sucks. Okay. I don't know what to do. My microphone is literally right here.
Oh, okay. Wait. Take your mic out a little bit more to your mouth.
Like that.
No, like put it closer to your mouth so I can, because I
Like
think it's being
like
covered or
if
something.
no, it's. I mean, it's. I
No,
don't know
it's
if you
not
can see
that.
me. I'm not. Yeah.
Then what the hell?
Great.
Okay, let's see here. I don't know. Oh well, whatever. I'll just have to like put my ear right close to the phone.
Okay. Uh. Anyways, yeah. No, this is. It's like. It's like my book is like the last act of the story that you were just talking about, but like on the ground, like from a ground level perspective.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And like so when I say I need
But
to
what
read this
last
book, like
aspect? Was it the poop?
no.
I started laughing. I'm sorry.
No, because it's okay, it's Victorian witches, right? And like our main
Yeah.
character ends up being the last of them.
Mm,
So
okay.
it is about especially what you were saying earlier about neutralizing the threat to capitalism from magic, and like
Yeah.
all of that, and dualism, that enables the immortality of the soul, but that enables the devaluation of the body, and like the last gasp of like anything that came before that.
Yeah. This sort of push to mechanical theory and leaving the sort of, was it the uh web chain of life or whatever, where everything sort of like has effects, you know.
Right, right, right. And so all of that stuff has been completely demonized, and so that's what. Yeah,
Interesting.
no. So imagine being the last one,
Yeah,
who
no,
was
that's
trained,
interesting because that'd be
who
interesting to
was
read since I
trained like in that dying, philosophy. So you're the last one.
yeah. Well, because I've
Yeah,
read a lot about from other books about the rise of mechanical philosophy. I don't know if you have, but yeah, there's a few
bits
really
and
good books out
pieces.
there where it's you got the lots of the folk tales and like the sort of understanding of how life is, and then the moving to the mechanical philosophy. Sort of that
Right,
period, yeah, where
and and it's like,
necessary for capitalism, right? But
yeah.
yeah, so that would be interesting to read or whatever whenever we're done your next part where I can read. I would like to, yeah, definitely see that happen
So
because
so
I
the
like just because
and
I've read this era and like this whole you know change of thought, I guess
Yeah.
process.
No, and you're
Yeah,
really we're
so
so that's what the character, that's what the protagonist, she sort of embodies, like somebody who witnesses this like
yeah,
firsthand and doesn't really necessarily understand what she's seeing, obviously. But like the dawn of the 20th century is really when this was sort of like, if I feel like that was the end of that project, and they like moved on to the next phase of whatever that is,
yeah,
because it's been unquestioned at this point for generations, right? Like
yeah. Hold on. I'm going
so.
to see if this works better. So I'm not having to put
I
my
really
ear
enjoyed I
next to the
really
phone and
enjoyed the
break my neck.
roasting of
I'm gonna
Descartes.
put on my little earbuds. Hold on.
Okay.
Plug into the phone. That might work actually. So give me 2 seconds here because I could hear you better that way.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
There we go. Now I can hear you
Oh,
perfectly. Perfect.
good.
Okay.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. Okay.
It's something to do with my phone. Sorry. It's just a really crappy Motorola. So
All right. No, I really enjoyed the roasting of Descartes too. That was really satisfying.
yeah. Yeah. I was like one day, especially at what part was it where we talked about like the identity and the needing to like um the subversive identity being the most important, and then the disgrace of the body needing to transform it and take control of it.
Yeah.
It
See,
reminds me
you
a
just put
lot
it really
of
well. You
yeah,
just summarized that really well. Sorry,
yeah.
remind you of what?
It reminds me of like the whole trans thing and really the postmodern sort of ideology, kind of like, but yeah, just modernized, you know,
Right.
into this present age. Because like that's exactly what they do. Is that like it's all about the internal, and then having transform physically the body to match your internal feelings. It's whatever self, right? Because it's disgusting and
Right.
like hated or whatever.
And in this modern world, which is essentially entirely created by capital, they can move on to the next phases of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that was interesting too.
Yeah.
I did laugh though with the poop, the obsession with the excrements, and it's true.
Yeah. I know. That's why I couldn't read Boswell's journal. I had to put that thing down really quickly because like John Boswell, who he was, somebody's doctor. I forget. He was some famous dude in like the 16th century, and he kept a journal, and like a lot of people back then did that, but I guess his was famous, and I have a copy of it somewhere, and I tried to read it because I'm like, oh, cool, an old school dude's journal. Let's see what it was like back then. Like literally, he measured his excrement every day.
Really?
Yeah, and I couldn't read it. That's why I ended up putting it down very quickly because I don't want to know, dude. I don't want to know, dude. I don't want to know.
Like I remember, like I know a lot with the Catholic and all that, like about the pooping thing, how it's like with the old sort of Catholic sort of belief, and like how that's like not like naughty, but like a sin almost, like that is part of like removing the sin from your body. Um, because my mom and all that there is Catholic, right? And she, it's
Oh,
not that
okay.
her belief, but other more, let's say, fanatical sort of belief in like Catholicism and stuff. That it does exist in that sort of mindset. So that's just kind of funny.
See, and this
Because
is
yeah,
where like and this is where I do have to, and this is why it's a novel, okay? Because the nuance has to be in there. That not all change is bad, right? Like I
yeah,
was raised not that way. I was raised even as a kid being told that that was, the parts of my food that couldn't be used by my body. You know what I mean? Like it's not it's not
yeah.
evil for God's sake. Like what the fuck?
It's so weird to think that that's the
It
like that.
really is. To me, it truly, truly is. And I've encountered this in literature, this attitude, obviously, and it was always like, okay, that's a little interesting
Yeah,
setup you got there, but okay, moving on. And like, and so to learn where that kind of stuff comes from is very interesting. But
yeah, right.
yeah, obviously, moving on from that as a society is a good thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know. I'm glad that I don't measure my poop every day.
Yeah, well, because the rationale was that they believed that you had to excrete a certain amount every day in order to remain healthy,
Yeah.
which is true-ish,
Well,
right?
so is
Like,
looking at your excrement every once in a while so that you know that you're healthy or not.
right, 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 right. But like, yeah,
We've
yeah,
been obsessed with this.
yeah. So I've run into that in the wild, I guess is what I'm saying, and it's wild stuff. They were But and the explanation of how it was like linked with the body of the proletariat or like the working class because they are the body of society and like
Yeah, well,
that's
that's like
that's
mechanical philosophy, and the whole all that whole period wasn't just the curiosity of wanting to know how the body works, but it was about
right.
making it a machine to be controlled and like used for
Which is kind of
specific purposes.
devastating. Again, I'm in favor of medicine. You know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
boggles. We have to remember, lest we forget that the Puritans lived in the time of humors. People, the United States was founded in the time of humors. For God's sake, like these
Mhm.
people still believe that shit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
Yeah.
go back to that. I
Well,
don't want to
no,
go back to
no, don't want to go back to that. It's but the thing I think is important. It's not that the knowledge is bad itself. The
no.
importance, what's to bring out to keep it an idea on is the the fact that it was a neutral sort of like discoveries. It had purpose, and that's so the
Right.
discoveries themselves isn't what's wrong. It's the for the purpose of which why this it came about.
I just always want to be cautious. And to me, that's a big part of what this is about, is trying to decipher what exactly has been good and bad change, you know?
Yeah, well, because like these things are not neutral no matter how much we want
No.
them to be, but they could be. That's the thing, they could be
Right.
neutral.
Well, and they can
So
just
I
be
think that's
good,
the yeah, well, exactly, right, the
as
fact
far as
that they're
medicine.
well, exactly, so these discoveries are they're just discoveries, they're facts, right? So that's
Yeah.
neutral, but we just
Yeah.
have to be mindful that they are discovered not for a neutral purpose to
Like
be
the
used in
motivation
not
behind them. Every discovery
exactly
has a discoverer, I guess you'd say.
exactly, and that
Yeah.
discoverer has a certain power most of the time.
They have an agenda or they wouldn't be investigating in the first place,
Exactly. It's like
usually.
even to this day, what gets discovered, quote quote, and all the inventions and everything new isn't neutral because it's being found out because they're getting paid to look at certain things and you
Oh, yeah.
forget other things. So that's what I mean by neutral. It's like there's a purpose and there's things
That's
that are
so
not going to be
funny.
explored because it doesn't serve the purpose.
This is
So
also relevant to stuff I've just been thinking about anyway. I was literally watching something yesterday about not how psychiatry is bad, but how the reason that like you'll all of a sudden have like a bunch of people diagnosed with this, and then all of a sudden you'll have a bunch of people diagnosed with that is because of like the impetus to do the research to
the thing with
you
psychology
see what I'm
though,
saying?
I'm very for when it comes to psychology, I'm very, very I give it the bombastic side eye, let's just say, a lot of the
Yeah.
time because of the motivations behind it and not having any sort of material basis for a lot of the time for its diagnoses, right? Because it's
Hmm.
the diagnoses of the mind and the motivations behind it. Like even just look at the the diagnostic manual for mental disorders is suspect. Even its existence is suspect, and what gets in there and what gets taught. I know, what's her name? Amy Souza. She goes by like the Heretic or whatever on YouTube, and she goes into all that.
Oh, yeah.
She actually just started to upload videos again because she stopped for a while because she had breast cancer. But she's looking really,
Oh my God.
yeah, she's looking really good though now, and she looks healthy and stuff. So I'm really happy because it's been a
Oh,
few
good.
years, I think, or
Oh,
at least a year.
yeah.
And so
Well,
I
I knew
wasn't
she
too
fell
sure how
off,
she
but a
was.
lot of people do. You just get busy. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I had no idea.
yeah, no, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, so she's been dealing with that, and I wasn't too sure if she'd ever return. Right, you never know what was going to happen. But yeah, so she started posting again. But yeah, I advise anyone who's actually watching this this far too, if you're still watching, I'm gonna get her loaded up YouTube channel up here. So yeah, I'll let you know her name so you guys go look her up because she goes into all the statistical diagnostic manual stuff and a lot of the problems with psychology and stuff and its
Yeah.
use.
Well, and see, this is another thing where I want to argue for misused tools, because I mean, I know personally it has been really helpful to me not to be diagnosed with anything, but to literally just read about the stuff and like have
Yeah,
the tools to function, to look at my own mind and go, okay, this might not be healthy. That
yeah.
might be better to do, you know.
Well,
This, it
also
doesn't,
too, a lot of the times it seems like there's a lot of like already they're just taking traits and different reactions and putting them in a box and saying this is a diagnosis. Like a lot of the time, like with the personalities disorders or whatever personality, which.
yeah,
And another thing too with that I have a problem with psychology and that whole field is that it takes legitimate reactions to external environmental factors and
and
makes it about
pathologizes them.
individual change and how the
Yeah,
individual needs to change to conform to those external environments which are not healthy, right? So it
yes,
puts the
right.
blame on the
Hmm.
person who is having an actual realistic reaction to something bad
Right. So,
externally.
and in
And
that way, it is
yeah,
100% carrying water for the capitalism we've been talking about for the last
yep,
3 hours or whatever. Yeah.
exactly, right? It doesn't want because
Yep.
they and instead, yeah, diagnosing people and it's so that they can be conform their behavior back and put it back into the society, which is
Mhm.
causing like very harmful reactions to individuals. At least that's my opinion. That's
No, I agree, and I think but like I say, I do. I think it's also just a radical misuse of tools
yeah,
because to be able to, I mean, and this seems passe at this point, but to be able to say, wow, I'm depressed and I might need somebody's help to get out of this, just to be able to say that to yourself is a very powerful thing. It can be.
yeah.
Like I'm dealing with like a bigger thing than like I don't know. Mental health is
I
something
think
it shouldn't
talk
be
therapy is
shameful to talk
extremely.
about.
I think talk therapy is extremely helpful.
Mhm.
And these and therapists, psychologists, whatever, I don't believe are malicious people with motives. I just think that they've been trained in a field that isn't neutral, right? But
Right, yeah, no,
talking, just even having
definitely.
someone to talk to, and a stranger too, that just like talk therapy, I think is good. Like I said, like
Someone who
it's not
observes
cool
ethical
to have a
guidelines too. I
yeah,
do. I think that it being a professional person who is, has oversight and has ethical guidelines that they are
yeah.
limited to. You know what I'm saying? That can be very important too.
Exactly, right? So I'm not saying that, oh, never gonna go see a counselor or a therapist, like nothing like that. I'm just saying that it's not neutral. So
And
like
I
this is
said
more of a
specific.
macro thing than a micro thing of an individual going to talk to someone because it's
Yeah,
necessary. It could
right.
very well help, but just be mindful that it's not neutral. Like
Well,
the
no,
on a
it
bigger
isn't.
scope, you know?
Psychology certainly isn't. It was founded by who again? But so like psychiatry specifically was the one I mentioned though, because they
Yeah,
always want to give
psychiatry.
you the pills
Yep, yep.
for stuff, which
They're the
that I
pill givers.
question. Yeah, that I have questions about. Mainly
Yep.
because they can't replicate their studies and they don't know how any of that stuff supposedly works.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's about just behavioral control, basically.
Yeah,
By
and
using, yeah,
I swear to God, they use oh God, they use the placebo effect in order to get these people to take these pills that they don't know what they do.
yeah.
Do you really think they don't know what they do? I don't know.
There's
Anyway,
well, they know that there's lots of bad side effects too. They do. They
yeah,
really do. And the fact that there's a conflict of interest when the pharmaceutical companies are giving them commission money to sell their product,
that should just
so,
plain old be illegal.
right? But that capitalism is all about profit over everything else, right? So, like that's just crazy to me that this is like
Yeah,
acceptable in our society. But yeah, anyways, I found where her YouTube channel. It's known heretic. So known
yeah,
heretic. There we go.
yeah.
Go follow her on YouTube, X or whatever she is at. I don't use X, so I don't know if she's even on there, but she's on YouTube.
I think I had gone ahead and unfollowed her because I figured she'd gone off and done something else with her time, but I didn't realize that
No,
it was that.
yeah,
So
it was
I'll
cancer.
go
Yeah.
and yeah, I didn't realize that. So I'll have to go
And
and
she's
check
back
that out
now, and
again.
she's looking really healthy again.
That's
She's looking
great.
really good, and I think so I think she's beaten it. So that's great. So she's back now, which is
Knock on wood.
crazy.
That's
Like
great.
going all that and then coming back to still keep going. Right, the fortitude. I think it actually gave her
Well,
some perspective too about being in, like, because she talks a lot about being present in your body and being aware in your body, like, and having that not sort of dissociation. And I think it
yeah,
just sort of helped her even formulate that even more, have more of a concept of that as well through this illness. So I think that's some great perspective that she might be able to give out there to the world. So yeah, people should go follow her. She's great. And she talks about
that
really
is.
interesting things in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
psychology and the aspect and the motivations and the history behind a lot of these sort of, professions, such as, like I said before, the diagnostic manual or whatever, diagnostic manual,
Yeah.
which is sketchy as fuck considering.
Yeah, I just like I say, I guess it's difficult to have the nuance in these conversations because you can find people who are against psychiatry and they're usually against all of it. Or
Yeah.
like you remember that lady that lady last summer who was hanging around and being cuckoo and like
Oh,
talking
Amanda?
about the yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah, that was her
god,
name.
I haven't thought of her in so long. Whatever happened to her?
I she she just tagged me in something the other day, but I guess it was a
Really?
secret something because I went to my mentions and there was nothing there. So who knows? Anyways, I
Oh, and
just
Matt, if you're out there, come give us a holler. We
right,
miss you.
yeah. She's obviously welcome to stop by if she likes whenever, but she was the one who, the first person I've talked to who I I don't remember what exactly psychological term I used, but that was, apparently her cue to discount everything I said about anything,
Yeah.
which struck me as interesting because those are literally just terms for things. Like people had
Yeah,
long
you have to be
periods
careful
of
not to
down.
get to a place of anti-intellectualism is what it is. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I understand exactly
right.
what you're saying because she also said something too about some sort of terminology or because someone was from a universe. I'm like, so, and I even said, I was like, so anything that's professional that has anything to do or connected to any sort of professional like status or whatever is all of a sudden in your mind discredited or discreditable. If someone went to university, oh, everything they say is discreditable. She's like, well, no. I'm like, well, then stop acting.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. I don't think I said it, but but then stop acting like that. That's the case, and that it makes the case for you if someone went to university or something. Like, come on, lady. let's
That's
let's
just
not do
plain
this.
old bigotry. How many millions of people have been to university? Oh my
Well, I
god.
mean, I think it's just anti-intellectualism. It's like
No,
you
yeah.
can't. It's like no, you can't just say if someone's been to university or a certain profession or not. It's you have. It's their arguments that you have to like to go after and talk. Explain your position from that as their position, not of their profession or where they come from. Like
Right.
because it
It's
doesn't
ad
really matter in the long
hominem.
run. It doesn't matter in the long run. It's it's a fallacy.
Ad
Just
hominem.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
So
lazy because, I
it is.
mean, have a rubric that you use when you approach a situation and your expectations, but then, maybe your expectations are mistaken or.
Exactly. Like you can be suspicious, but you can write off someone just because of like an affiliation.
Right.
You have to deal with the arguments, not the person
Right.
making them.
Right.
You can be
Right.
suspicious, but that doesn't make your case. That doesn't that doesn't provide you with like the answer to your question. Just
And they're
because
always
that has
so
nothing to do with the
smug, I
question.
feel like. They're
But
always
yeah, if
so
you're out there,
smug, I feel
Amanda.
like. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
I almost forgot you actually went and talked to her. That was
I
amazing.
did. I did. I don't even remember her YouTube or anything like that, so I can't even check on that. I've never watched it either.
I watched it when you guys did it, and I seem to
I know
recall I
because
was
you were
late.
there. You were there. I remember that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah, but I got there late, so that was.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Oh.
even look at the comments. I figured because that's not the point, and I could care less, right?
No, and they were all her Betty's.
Well, it didn't
And,
matter what I say. It would not have mattered. No matter what I said, it would not have mattered because
I
they
know.
have like idea of like and their
It's,
purpose is not the purpose of like actually getting to understand someone else's ideological framework or their
oh
position.
no.
It's not about that at all, right? So
Oh
there's no
no.
point even reading the comments, and those are not the people that I would even really care about.
Right.
Um, hearing this, conversation. Mostly was interested in what she was going to do. I was curious.
Yeah.
She's
Which was not that interesting. I don't seem to recall that being that interesting, but maybe I missed something.
well, no, I was just curious. I was, I was like, well, let's see what happens here. Because, like, I mean, there's nothing. What's the worst that would happen? Nothing, right? Like,
Right now, she's not gonna like come get you or something.
right, exactly. Like, she might want to try to discredit me. I don't think that's going to happen. Just, I don't say things just because I want to be on the side. I say things because I believe in them, and I believe in them because there's evidence for them. That's why I believe them, because I don't go on faith shit. I don't do faith.
Well, and the thing about being discredited is they have to get more credibility with the people who care about you.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they
good
have to
luck.
have any credibility at all, and not just based
Right.
on ad
Yeah.
hominem
Not
and
just
fallacies,
some random lady on the internet.
right?
Random lady on the internet says those who respect you shouldn't. Who are they going to listen to? You, who they
But you know what? I
respect, or
will
the
give her
random
credit.
lady on the internet?
I gave her credit. You know what? She was really actually quite nice. She, especially
Well,
off before and before and after the interview when it was just us. Her demeanor actually changed. She was much,
that's
yeah.
bonkers.
She wasn't so didn't have this sort of I don't want to say hoity-toity, but like or sly, but it was much more just relaxed and more like just warm, like not so icy, you know what I mean, or snarky, or there was no posturing. There you go, posturing. There was no posturing to her.
That's
Um,
weird.
yeah, I thought that too. I was like, interesting. So she was like, and she asked me what I was doing, and we talked about my mirrors. And like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
I'm hoping to get some craft shows. And she's like, oh, that's not like just like like a regular like
Normal stuff.
normal
Yeah.
talk, yeah, small talk chat.
What?
Completely,
Yeah, go tell your brother it's lunchtime.
without posturing whatsoever. So it's awesome.
Wow. That's special.
So yeah,
Mm.
I thought that was interesting too. I didn't mention that before either, have I? No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
No.
that was interesting.
It is. Ay.
I mean,
Why is everyone
so
such a phony? Oh my gosh.
well, I don't know if it's even
Even
she notices it. I don't even know if she
yeah.
notices it. The difference. It might
Mm.
not be something that she's consciously aware that she's
Right.
posturing when she's
Yeah.
on video, maybe to conform to the audience expectations, or I don't know what it is, but I just noticed that, right? I observed that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she wasn't rude or anything, and even the disagreement, she wasn't like trying to. She wasn't trying to set me up, which I wasn't too sure if she was going to try to or not. But I didn't feel like she was.
Mm.
Like when I was
Mm.
there, it didn't feel like a setup. It just felt like a discussion that between people who disagreed. Really.
See, I think she thinks that the feminist position sets itself up.
Yeah. See, I actually think she believes that. I guess
Yeah.
it's not
And
just a grift, but
right. So like credit to her there, I suppose. And like,
Yeah, I'll
it
give
was,
credit where that credit's due, I guess, right?
yeah. And I just the idea, like, I really wanted to, I don't know, dig into it. So, my poor brain has not been working right lately
It's
because I
okay.
really wanted to get into that more last, like, autumn, around the election time. Like, is feminism, like, the obviously the anti-feminists are the Christians, right?
Hmm.
So if feminism is demonic, then so be it. Like, what does that mean? And it really, really, really is what we're digging into in this book. This is what I've been thinking about for a year, at least.
I also think a lot of these anti-feminist types of communities or whatever, like with her community, I'm assuming too. I'm lumping them together. I think that their idea of feminism is third wave, quote unquote
Oh yeah,
feminism, because
oh yeah,
there was a lot of assumptions provided that says to me that they have no clue what my position is. They
yeah.
expected things from me and the way that they would like try to be like say certain things to try to get me to take the bait kind of thing, I guess. Like
Hmm.
thinking that it was going to trigger me or something, and without reason realizing that I agreed with some of their positions,
Right. Yeah, I've run into that too.
right? Which and it's because they don't really they're expecting the third wave quote unquote
Well,
feminism, which
they're
is anti-feminist, by the way. Just a men's
yeah,
rights. It's
yes.
men. It's
But
men.
so they're
Pick
railing
me.
against the
Just pick
feminism that
me.
they knew in college or whatever.
Yeah, it's the pick me mentality of penis
Right.
worshippers.
Right. Which, I was thinking about that the other day. It really irks me that, okay, let's say you're a young girl and you're given this feminine role. And so you actually have any kind of an independent thought. So you question that.
Yeah,
And then you get automatically swept up in this tomboy thing. And so that's a pick me behavior. And it's like, oh, you just cannot win.
no, I
It
know,
really doesn't
I know.
matter.
Well, people don't understand. Yeah, I think the word "pick me too" has been completely, like twisted around that people don't even know what that means anymore. Right? It's not
Yeah.
about not like pick me is like, oh, I'm not like other girls mentality. No, a pick me is someone who will throw other girls under the bus for a guy.
Yeah.
It's not about not conforming to femininity. That's something that should be
Right.
celebrated. Because
Right. And so,
stereotypes
but so
between
this,
anybody is
this
not okay.
discourse has muddied that to the point that it's difficult to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a fucking praise penis fucking movement. Praise the
Yeah.
penis movement, stereotypes and all. Be hyper
Oh
feminine because
yeah.
that's so liberating. An OnlyFans, girl, woohoo. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's just you pick meing for men who think that you should be public property for them all. That's not
Mm,
women's rights or liberation at all.
no, no,
That's
no.
just
My goodness.
yeah, that's conforming to males, objectification of you. Like that's a pick me.
Right. Serious question. What do you guys think of Louise Perry's concept of maternal feminism? Oh my God, it's been a while since I got to talk about that, and I
Louise
don't remember.
Perry's. I don't even know who that is.
I have heard that's come up in my annals, my journeys before. It's been a few years, and I haven't slept since then. Like basically, is what I'm saying.
Haven't slept since
Um,
then.
I haven't. Yeah.
What is
Um.
maternal feminism?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. I think I wrote a blog post about it 5 years ago. Oh my God. Valid.
I should look that up. I have no clue what that.
Right, yeah, I would go and refresh myself right now, but if I do that, it'll take me off camera apparently. So
Yeah,
I don't
apparently.
want to do that. And I don't have my laptop out here.
Yeah, it's all good.
Um, that's the kind of thing that I should be making YouTube videos about, right? That's right up my alley. And the thing about it is I love feminism, and I still don't think, you know, I have my positions that I have espoused all of these years, but like I would be more interested in making videos about like the social theories that I have. I mean, like the social political theories that I have and that kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Well,
It's not
that's the thing
exactly.
that when it comes to my um view on feminism. The reason why is because it really ties in to my socio-political theory
It's on
that I
you.
have. So I think it's important to espouse that and not just focus mainly just on like feminism itself, like
Right, and of course,
disassociate from everything else. Because guess what?
yeah.
We're not disassociated from everything else. We're in a world where we need to think holistically and on a macro
Yeah.
level as well as the individual.
Right, and I keep finding myself doing this and sort of wandering away from feminism. Like I always have one foot there. That's where I live, right? Like, you know,
Hmm.
that's kind of where I sleep at night, right? Like, but like I can't. I don't know.
It's because
I'm
there's a
hoping
lot
to
of
bring
feminists
some.
out there. There's a lot of feminists out there that highly focus just on that feminist aspect and actually claim that, well, women deserve to have like our rights, like our positions or whatever, like our justice, our equality, our liberation, whatever, away from everything else. Like we should be able to focus on that. But if you do that, and I've said this before, if you do that, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because
Yeah.
feminists and females are connected to the bigger hierarchy, and you can't have one without the other. You're not separated from politics because you're not separated from society. Guess what? You live in one. So it's going to have an effect on your feminism, whether you like to admit that or not. And to say that it
Yep.
doesn't matter, what ends up happening is what's happening now in the quote unquote truth community, where you have a bunch of people coming in who are now like grifting to the right because they don't have a working political theory, and we're not supposed to talk about it in regards to feminism. What the fuck is that about? I think that's so weird. And so people have misconceptions about socialism, Marxism, even conservatism, liberalism. They have like misconceptions about all these socio-political um, subcategories because they're only looking at feminism and they're not being given any information about anything else. And so propaganda is starting
Mhm.
to like sort of drum up, and people are having opinions based on mainstream propaganda and
Yeah.
applying that to the politics because we're not talking about it amongst each other. That's not
Right.
conductive for anything good. Let me tell you
No.
that.
Yeah.
Because
So
the state and the society that we live in, who are transing children who are gay, removing your rights, is the same ones that are telling you these things. You should maybe be more suspect. You should maybe be more suspect
Yeah.
instead of listening to everything else that they're saying and taking in. You should be suspect of the whole shenanigans that they're
Well,
putting
it's
out
just
there.
like I say,
Because look what they do.
this whole world has been built by capital
Yeah.
because because it took over before you were born, before your grandparents were born, a
Hmm.
long time ago. Like there is no thing else. Like that's all there is. Like that's it's
I'm just thinking that
amazing.
what is trying to take and remove your rights now should be suspect when they're talking about other things as well. You
No,
would
yeah,
think,
absolutely. That's
right?
what I'm saying. There's no there's no alternative viewpoint left. That's what I'm saying. There's
The
no
Tina syndrome.
do
Tina?
what?
The Tina syndrome?
Who's
It's
that?
a saying. Tina syndrome. It came with Thatcher. It's there is no alternative, right? Tina.
Oh. Oh, no, I'm saying literally, as far as capital is concerned, in this society, civilization, there is no alternative voice to be like, oh, no, that's the reasonable guy over there who came from a not capitalist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's what
There's
I'm saying. That's
no,
what Tina syndrome
yeah,
is. There is no alternative capitalism. That's it. So
mm, yeah. I'm not
there's
saying
no.
I personally actually believe that, but
Well,
practically
there is
speaking, that is
alternative. Yeah, there is alternatives. There could be alternatives. We do not implement it because
right,
it's taken over. Yeah.
right. Practically speaking, when you look around, you're not going to find it.
It's globalized. It's globalized, but
Right,
that doesn't mean it
right.
couldn't be thought up and put into practice. It's just that it gets harder to do it when people keep saying, "Well, that's all that there is, and that's all there'll ever be. Deal with it."
I just,
Or
I
if you
hope
don't
you don't
even,
mean that's what, I
no,
hope you
no,
don't
not
think
to
that's
you,
what
no,
I
no,
meant.
no. No,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
that was what Tina syndrome was about. When you feeling the Tina syndrome, that there is no alternative anymore. That's what Tina
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
But the thing is, what was I going to say now? I had something I was going to say now. Oh yeah, they don't even now. It's to a point where it's not even Tina syndrome for a lot of the time. It seems like they don't even conceptualize. People don't even conceptualize that there could be something else. They can't even
Right.
get out of their box because they're so
That's what I'm
limited.
saying.
Yeah, they can't even
Right.
get out of the box anymore. because they literally do not conceive of it, the box being there.
There is no alternative.
Yeah, they don't even see the box being present. They don't see the box. Yeah.
There are all kinds of conflicting voices within it that claim to be alternatives to one another.
But they're not really.
Right.
Yeah. we ride it on the same wavelength.
Yep. No, and I hate to say it, but this was really invigorating for me. This was really exactly the kind of stuff I needed to hear, strangely, because like I say, this is what I'm writing about. This is why I'm writing it.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that. Yeah.
So when I've said this 100 times, that all of the themes about everything that I've talked about on the channel are in this book, this fiction book, this historical fiction fantasy that I'm randomly writing. You know, like I swear it's relevant. I swear.
But that's good though. It's good. I'm glad that it's being mutually beneficial.
Oh, yeah, no, this is great because this is the background for the world that my story, I mean, it's the real world, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This is like, so I have to figure out ways to kind of build this in as my world building, and I'm sort of cheating in that way, but in that, you know, who needs to come up with a world on their own? I can just
no, because
I like the parts of the real one that I like, and you know,
you don't want escapism either. So I don't think you're still building a world because you're building it with characters and scenarios that did not physically happen the exact way. Like it didn't. It's not a representation of it, something that literally happened in reality. So it's still your own world.
No, it's historical fiction, and I think the fiction part is important because that's how you bypass the analytical, critical thought that's going to say, "Wait a minute, this is some bullshit." You know what I mean? And actually get those messages in there.
Yeah, because how many people read nonfiction history?
No, it's the spoonful of sugar. The fiction is the spoonful of sugar that makes that medicine go down, is what that is.
Yeah, exactly, right? Who's other than me, by the way? Like we all know I'm weird. That's my jam.
No, and I really don't read a lot of fiction either. I haven't read much for like a decade because it's been
I don't read lots of fiction either. Most of the things I read is nonfiction.
No, and I keep saying the last fiction I think I read was Wuthering Heights, and I liked it. Or was it House of Leaves, and I hated it. I think I read them both at the same time. Anyway, I haven't had a good experience. The last couple fiction books I read was like House of Leaves, which was stupid, and The Lovely Bones, which is horrifying. And I've said this before, don't read that book, it's bad.
The Lovely Bones? I know about that one already. So
yeah,
the last thing I read, I think it was...
Fucking Oprah.
I think it was To Be Devoured.
Ooh.
That one's interesting. And the other one was, what is the other one? Tender as the Flesh.
Those both sound like vampire books. Are those vampire books?
That's not. That one's Tender as the Flesh is about a dystopian future of cannibalism because of...
Oh, okay. I was close.
And the social classes and then starting to breed humans for food, as food. And as an industry, and it's written by someone from South America, and so this is happening in South America, and that one's interesting. The other one is also about capitalism. Not capitalism, sorry, cannibalism.
Come see, come saw.
But that one's more just gross and horror. More like it's not like as much of a message as much as it is just.
Sure.
Individual sort of psychology and exploring that and all that, right? Which doesn't have much of a socio-political, overall sort of message at all. But the other one does. And so the other one, I'd say would be definitely one to read if you like getting that spoonful of medicine down with the sugar as a message. The other one, it probably just really gross you out because it really goes into some gross details about eating dead flesh and stuff like that, because it's about this woman who starts to associate herself with vultures, and she gets obsessed with vultures and then being a vulture and wanting to know what the vultures know and like thinking that she's like one with the vultures. Because it's part of her.
She's having a psychotic breakdown. Is what's happening.
Mechanism. Yeah, it's part of her sort of disassociation from trauma that she gets in these hyper-fixated focus and obsession, and then one of it starts to become these being like vulture, and it goes way too far.
See, I thought you did tell me about that one. I thought so. I thought that title sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Sounds terrifying.
Those are the last things I've read, I think.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I don't know
No,
what
thank
other
you.
Withering Heights and what was the other one?
Oh, Wuthering Heights, which is,
Withering
the classic that they're remaking with Barbie, which is, I just can't
Barbie.
quite rep. Yeah, the girl who played Barbie. I can't remember her name. Margot
Oh,
Robbie.
not Barbie itself. Like I was thinking you were thinking the Barbie
No,
like movies.
I would watch that. I would or if somebody like wanted to take like the old Barbie like 3D animated
Yeah,
characters
yeah,
and
yeah,
have them do Wuthering Heights, I would watch
yeah.
that. If somebody wanted to do a stop motion animation of Wuthering Heights with actual Barbies, I would also watch that.
Just
Um,
putting it out there in the void, in the ether, out
yeah,
there. If anyone wants to do
yeah,
that.
just free ideas today. But like, no, this is Margot Robbie, the 40-year-old lady who they had play Barbie in the Barbie movie as a 20-year-old English girl on the moors, pining for her, beloved Heathcliff. I'm just like, this is not going to work, you guys. Like, that's just not going to, that doesn't work. That doesn't, there's nothing about that works. I'm sorry. I
This is
can't,
no good.
like, I'm not even going to bat for Bronte. It's just not, it just doesn't work.
I hear
Um,
that the movies and the motion pictures are dead.
oh
That's
my
the
God.
dying. It's a
They
dying
only
breed.
have 10 actors left. I swear to God.
Everything
They
is
put
just
in
like
everything.
a race to the bottom. It's just product now. They're just like putting so much
Oh my
shit out
God.
there that like it's bankrupting. It's gonna
Well, and
bankrupt
see,
the
this is what I'm
industry.
saying about like the progressive mindset of the generations, because I feel
Yeah,
like 2 or 3 generations ago, nobody would have put up with this shit.
yeah,
Like people, like
yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, there's people
and
that do like complain about it, and like there's critical, people about
oh
the
yeah,
movies and stuff like that, like critics or whatever.
and they
But
might as
yeah,
well be pissing into the wind. I mean,
of course, right? Because of the
for all good that that
conglomeration,
does.
conglomerates don't care. They don't. They
No,
just want to put out
no.
a product and invest in less resources and get the
Well,
most possible gains. But of course, that just degrades it, and then nobody likes it, nobody gets it, and you go bankrupt.
well, and it's the anti-intellectualism, because film is supposed to have like any kind of a mind. It's supposed to tell you a story,
Yeah,
right? It's supposed to. It's not just supposed to be junk. It's supposed to be
yeah, I
art
know.
of some kind. So
Exactly, but they don't care about that because they see it as a product, not art. So they don't want to
no, but
hire.
so they've managed to convince the populace to think the same way, because intellectualism is out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even know if I even agree with all of that completely because, like I said, people are critical of them. It's just there's
No,
nothing much you can do about it.
no, I know. I'm not saying everyone. Obviously, you and I are sitting here criticizing it, but
But I see lots of people on
there's the
on
like
YouTube
the
that I think
spirit of
that
the times. And I don't want to like. I'm critical of all of it, so I feel like I'm biased in that way. So maybe I'm going too far the other direction. Like
no, I don't think you are. I just think that like when it comes to the cinema and stuff like that, I think there's a lot of people that are because I see it all the time. I always get it popped up, and I not even like watch them, but people criticize like all the fucking Disney fucking upchucks that they're doing retakes, upchuck
well, so
retakes,
I just
and just
why do they
everything else.
make why do they make hundreds of millions of dollars then off these things?
But they don't anymore. They're becoming bankrupt. Everything's a flop now. One more flop and Disney's done. It's under. No one's even going to their fucking their amusement parks anymore either. It's dead. They're
Well,
dying.
I know for a fact that at least one person goes to their amusement parks twice every year, and I could tell you all about her, but I digress. Um, because this place is perpetually stuck in 1997. I swear to God.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I've been to Disneyland, not Disney World. I've been
right.
to
Well, Disney
Disneyland when I was
World is way further away from you, so yeah.
yeah, I've been there when I was 6. I don't really remember much of it, but I think I enjoyed myself. I wouldn't take my kid.
No, and so we're
Kids
in
are
a
different
position
then
now.
though.
We're in a position now where I get to explain, because we scrape our pennies together to send him to a private school. So now I get to explain to our almost 8-year-old why we're not going to Disney this year or next year or the year after.
Yeah.
which is mostly that we can't afford it. But I'm like, if money was no option, that's still just not who we are.
Yeah, it's just like
Object, I
we don't
mean.
go there. We don't go there because like
That's just
to give off a lot of reasons.
yeah, no, and the most kid friendly one I think is because do you want a memento from a gift shop or do you want to go create something original, special to
Yeah,
you? You know that
yeah. You don't want to give brain rot. Like
no.
there's a lot of other like when I take my kid to things, I try to think like okay. So this year I took him. It was his birthday this month. I took him to a haunted mini golf manor, and it was mini golf in this building, and it was all blacklight, and it was like going through different horror movie sets, and it was mini golf. And you didn't just use the golf club and a ball; you actually take the ball and you would play games. Like there was a clock one where you put the ball in and then try to get not have them go through the holes while you kind of had to fixate your two arms and pull these levers to get it to go up and over those ones. And then there was other ones that was like yeah, little like a table, the dining table one where you had to sort of like almost like a pinball machine, kind of try to divert the ball into the other side without going into the holes. Yeah, it was so crazy. It was so cool, and it was such
Wow,
good like effects that yeah, I've got photos. I should send them to you. Like, I'll email them to you. Yeah, and it's called the
that sounds
Haunted
awesome.
Manor Mini Golf, and like things like that. I'd rather take it to that. That was creative as fuck, right? So I took
Yeah,
him there for his birthday instead of like
is
doing
he
some
into
sort of.
horror?
Oh yeah,
Okay, cool.
just like his
Yeah,
mom.
yeah, right on, right on.
He was raised on.
See, my little one is into horror, and I'm really not. Like, I can dig me some ghost stories or like a psychological thriller, but not. No, he gets that from his dad's side. Like,
Yeah, no,
and
like
I don't really know what to do. He's 7, almost 8 years old, and like really
I
wants
think
to watch
well,
some
my
stuff. And I'm
mom
like,
came with us too. So I mean, you could have. I don't think that would have been too much for you to do something like that, right?
oh no, 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 no. I'm talking like media.
Oh yeah, media. No, I know. Well,
Putt putt is putt putt, and they can make it as spooky as they want. I like me a
right?
good haunted house. I like me a good haunted house. Those are people in costumes. It's all in good fun, you know. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, but when it comes to like the movies and stuff like that, I'm the same sort of way. Like he wants to watch movies, but there's so many I don't want him watching for one
right, right,
because
right.
of like
And it's
the messages that it says. Because no matter what, I don't care what anyone says, media always has a message, even if it's not purposeful or consciously put forth,
because
which
it's
I
telling a
doubt that there's
story.
a lot of like that is like there's an
If it's
intention.
not telling a story, that's a bad movie.
Yeah, right.
A
And there's
very bad
always going to
movie.
be your perceptions placed, the author's perceptions placed into their work and the way that they
Yeah.
view the world, no matter what.
Mhm.
You cannot tell
Mhm.
me otherwise
Mhm.
because that doesn't make sense.
No.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm very critical about the things that he watches and reads.
Mhm.
And there's not really much out there. It's just a pile of dog shit most of the time. Except for Ergo
Yep.
Proxy, but he did not get that because it was a little over his head. Like so, the levels. Yeah,
Yeah.
not a children's show.
Yeah.
Lots of
Well.
intellectual sort of philosophies and shit that are going on that is way over his head, but because his
Nice.
age. But you know, he still watched it. It was great for the aesthetics, I guess. We watched it because he wanted to know what I was watching or what because I was watching it at
Yeah.
this time again. So I was
Oh.
like, yeah, it's okay. There's no sex or nudity or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, no
Yeah.
degrading.
See, and the thing about it that is like I don't care so much about nudity, but violence really gets my goat
Really,
because there's like
I
a
don't like.
healthy, normal place for nudity in a
Except for
person's
it's
life.
never like that in the movies. Usually when it's especially horror, it's objectifying women. It's just the objectification of
Oh
women.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
If it was regular or what, yeah, but when do you see that regular? It's always mostly framed as an objectifying sort of aspect. It's to get off. It's titillating, which is not what I want him getting, especially since he's a boy and it's
Yeah.
saturated in our culture. The most that I can control that aspect while he's growing up and giving a different mindset, so that when he goes out into the world without me, he's not subject to thinking and being put into that propaganda system as normal. He's going to
Oh my
see it as
goodness.
abnormal.
Uh, My husband was watching a cartoon the other day where the main character's parents are both nudists. which is like the complete opposite of that,
Yeah.
right? Like it's these two old people.
Was this like for kids though, or
No, it was just a
yeah?
cartoon that was on in the living room, and
Okay.
but it just occurred to me that you're right. There's a lot of stuff that's like that, and then there's other stuff that thank goodness isn't.
Yeah.
Because it made his teenage brother a bit squeamish. I think what with the nudity, and it was just like that's an example of what I'm talking about. It's like I do
Yeah.
not give a shit that the 7-year
Yeah.
old saw that. I don't care. They were literally just walking around talking, and they were naked while they were doing it. I don't care.
Yeah. I find that to be a rarity a lot of the
Oh, it
time.
is. It is. It is.
So
It is.
yeah,
But so
in
that's
that
an
regard,
example.
I
Which is
wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. But like when, especially like with a lot of the kids or teenagers like anime nowadays, like I have to like I'm like, no, you're not reading that. You're not
oh my
watching that
god.
because the like it's to a point where it's almost like the lolly shit and the upskirts and the complete. It's just so degrading.
Like
It's
what?
so degrading. The things I've seen. Oh yeah, like I'm like you're on a fine line. This is because in Japan it's completely legal to create animation of child porn,
Right. But
right?
so like
But
what kind
Japan
of
also
titles
is
are
one
you
of the
talking about?
what?
Like what kind of titles are you talking about? I'm just curious which
Oh, I
animes
don't
you're
know. I
talking about.
can't even think of one. But almost every single
Okay.
one, every single anime, almost now, new ones especially, every single one, pretty much.
Uh,
Crazy, I know. So that's why I was like, oh my, like it is pretty bad. It's always in there, always in there. It's always degrading. It's always objectifying, and
I
so
feel
it's
like
like,
anime has been pretty bad forever,
and
though.
this, oh, I know, and it's because of Japan and the society that it cultivated. Because I mean, it's it's the hub of distribution and whatnot of CP in the world. One of the worst ones.
Oh, I did not
And
know
because
that.
yes, when they
Funny.
have actual CP of real, they slap on the wrist like what 3 months of community service, and it was just barely made
Oh,
illegal.
hey, geek girl, how you doing? Thank you,
Oh
honey.
hey,
Aw,
oh geek girl,
thank you, honey.
yeah, you can get that heart.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
should come back and listen to this one. This one was a banger.
yeah,
The
but
reading part in the middle, especially, was a banger. Mm.
but it really shows. It's really scary to think that that kind of culture is being sort of soft powered into this.
Disseminated around the world.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's becoming more normalized. I'm like, this is not good. This used to be like, if this was like back in the 80s and 90s, this is what people went to jail and get shanked for.
Wait, I'm seeing a correlation. I'm seeing a correlation. This is an old observation that I made back in middle school. Is that all those tech bros love fucking anime, don't they?
Oh, they do, and that's why their avatar's always an anime girl, and like they're trying to emulate it because they're
Yeah, I
like
wasn't even going that
because they've
direction, but
been
yeah,
based
that's
on
yeah.
fucking anime porn, like all the time, waking off to anime porn, which is just so fucking weird. It's
I
just so
don't
weird.
understand. I don't understand finding animated people sexy.
It's because when they're
Is that
whenever they're growing
me?
up on it and then wanking off to it, they've got association to orgasm to
I
that.
feel
So
like
it's
I feel like,
association.
but like to find them sexy in the first place, I feel like that's some weird.
That it is some weird shit. Like
Like to be aroused by a draw, like not even a realistic drawing, not even a realistic
I
drawing.
know.
Like
Like,
I, is it any
and
wonder that it's one step to pillows and stuff? I don't.
right, marrying a character. I know that's happened to Japan. Like a character that doesn't exist.
See, and that shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be able to marry someone who is
Shouldn't.
imaginary because they
Well,
can't
yeah.
consent
Well,
to
you
that.
shouldn't. They shouldn't like. You shouldn't like. What like well, what's the word I'm looking for? You shouldn't like normalize it for them. You shouldn't like
Yeah.
let them think that
No,
that's
and that's
okay.
just
Like
not
that
healthy
shouldn't
for the
be
individual either because
right.
they're in love with an imaginary friend. That's
Yeah,
just
you don't
sad.
pander
And
to
they,
that. You don't let them pander to that. Like
no,
you don't.
yeah, no, that's not healthy for the person. I really
But the
feel.
reason why they do it is because it makes it easy for people for companies to exploit, right?
We're talking about people who get married to imaginary characters at the moment. No, not people who use body pillows and enjoy them. People who think that they're real enough that they can marry them.
That's who they choose to live with.
Think how those people are what? Few and far between. Yes, admittedly. I'm not sitting here yeah. We're just kind of We're in hour 3 at this point, so we're just shooting the shit. I think now.
Yeah, I think we're just shooting the shit at this point. But yeah, no, it's just
ladies hanging out, jabberjawing, gossiping like we do.
But see, the thing is, it was with the invention of the internet and all that. Like kids are seeing it now, and then so it's so normalized, and it's incredibly unhealthy to have that sort of association of sex and this individual characters, and like it's just not healthy. And so I've tried to limit that, at least for my kid. Like I said, especially because he's a boy, because there's like certain boys are weird. It's very, I think, crucial to help shape and form who they are at a certain you have a certain window of opportunity, right? And I think that really starts young, and you really have to sort of cement moral ethics very clearly in them right from the beginning, and then help limit the propaganda that's out there, really, because like the misogyny is crazy, and it really is. It's pretty bad out there still. Right. And it's getting worse.
God, yeah, no, it's funny because I feel like we're about the same age, right? I think I'm a couple of years older than you. I forget, but we grew up something like that. But I feel like we grew up in this little bubble window of time when it was sort of taken for granted misogyny was bad.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and we were supposed to not do those things.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah, it was a much more.
Like that had been established, and that discussion was closed.
Yeah. There was much more of an equality going on, even though there was still that underlying, insubordinate and dominant status you had to look for it. You really had to look for it, right? But now it's so plain and obvious, and like
it started 20 years ago. Or in like the 2010s, all of a sudden misogyny became funny.
Yeah, yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Going through it, be like, wait, all of a sudden that shit's supposed to be funny? That's like what?
That shit is what you get punched for, man. Like I was growing up. I grew up in the grunge era, right? I'm riot girl shit, so I'm like, I'll knock the nuts out of you. Like, are you kidding?
Are you a couple of years older than me? I don't remember.
Okay.
How old are you again?
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that? Okay. I'm going to be 42. I'm going to be 42.
So when is the era? How did you miss that?
Yeah, I don't know. I was in middle school by the time I learned who Kurt Cobain was, and he was already dead by then. So I don't know. I don't know.
I was a little badass growing up, so this is elementary school that I started to be like, yeah, Courtney Love.
I don't know. My parents met at a Mensa meeting, so I was raised by geeks and nerds and pagans, interestingly enough. And I've told both of the two middle ones, I've had this conversation with where he told them that the geeks and the pagans used to be the same group, and they were both like, really? Yes, my children, yes. 30 years ago.
many years ago.
I used to go to the Mensa meeting and see them, and then I would go to the pagan meeting and I would see a lot of the same people, like.
That's so weird. That is weird, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, so I recognize a lot of the things that are coming out of both the left and the right now, and I'm like, y'all used to agree on this shit. Like, what?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Anyway. But so the evolution of that has just made me a cynic, and I have just decided that I have to make up my own mind. Because literally the group that I grew up, that I was like born into, has split into two. So like what?
Well, for me, it's like the more things change, the more things start to be very similar. like the way I view things when it comes to, say, like the politics, the polarization, I see a lot of the time that they're same goals, and so it's just different aesthetic, and I think that's obvious. At least it is to me, but it doesn't seem obviously
No,
others, I
it's
guess,
just
but
been very interesting to watch the trajectory, I guess, of these
yeah.
individuals. Like my mother was a new atheist libertarian 20 years ago and is now a MAGA Christian. And I'm like, okay, that's, that's an interesting trajectory.
Libertarian in the States, libertarian has always been and libertarian's always been sort of more aligned to the conservative.
Oh, I know. She
Yeah.
was always a
So,
conservative.
yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah.
to go from a, you used to be able to be an atheist and be a conservative at the same time.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And now you can't do that, apparently.
Apparently.
You
No, I
know,
mean, maybe you can, but I don't know.
they're vanishingly few and far between as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think a lot of the mega. I think a lot of the mega thing, the mega hype, and all that has been really decimated. I think it's starting to decimate. There's been a lot of polarizing factions moving out, and this is how it was for quote unquote the left. Like people like lumped. I had a more of a. They were okay to be associated with the left, but people were. But a lot of the now they can't, like, they spread apart and then sort of drifted off to the right wing a lot, or drifted off in some, I don't know, liberalism, and then yeah, so it sort of really decimated the left. And then now I think everything that's been going on is really decimated MAGA. So I mean, I don't know where they're all going to spread off to, but like, yeah, I think people are just looking for alternatives, and they just can't perceive of one because it's not being talked about, and so they kind of go off drifting to different grifts and not realizing it and thinking that they found something new, but it's just same old to me. That's the way I see it.
Right. No, yeah, same. And I also, as a supposed left leaning person who was so, gung ho against the trans issue, I kept waiting for that right wing grift to come along. That one I keep hearing about. I kept waiting, like, and then I heard that, like, literally those people last year who got caught taking money from the Russians. It was Lauren Chen and, like, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
like a whole bunch of YouTubers. They were literally here in Tennessee, and I was like, "Oh man, y'all can't stop by and give a bitch a check too? Like, come on!" Like,
give a bitch a check too.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's not like you can just hop the fence.
Yeah,
It's still a bunch of elitists playing against each other to make the rest of us pick up their crumbs, and it's so stupid.
Yeah. And
Because they were never going to do that.
It goes the other way too. I actually was talking to someone on a Zoom meeting and brought up the fact about, like, said something about Putin, and then looked at me, looked at me, like, well, maybe you don't believe it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not a Putin fan. Just because I don't believe everything that the American elites say, doesn't mean I'm a Putin fan. I think they're both trash. What are you talking? Like, it's like they can't even conceive that they're, like, out of the box. It's going to be one side or the other. It's going to be like this or for that. It's like, what the fuck?
Right. It's like you're sitting, it's like we're all in a baseball stadium, right? And they're like, are you for this team or that team? And you're trying to sit there and criticize Major League Baseball.
Exactly. That is such a beautiful analogy. Yeah, you're
and
like,
they're not
it's
interested.
not about the teams. Yeah. It's about the baseball. It's about baseball as a whole, like, motherfuckers.
Right.
But they can't even
The
conceive of
game
that.
is corrupted. Can't you see? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're just taking the game as, like, as a given.
At face value, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great analogy. I like that.
And they're obsessed with the score and then jump up and scream every time somebody gets a run in, and you're like, oh my God, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
No doubt. Oh, that's so good. Just on the fucking benches, you're like, can I go home?
I don't. The last time I saw there was an unopened jar in that cabinet behind you. Other than that, I don't know. Sorry, I had to field a question about pickles.
It's okay. I actually, what time is it? I should probably get,
Ooh, it's almost
It's
1
gotta been
o'clock
like
where
at
you
least
are.
3 hours. Oh my god, it's almost
Yeah,
1 here. Okay, I gotta go.
yeah. Yeah, okay.
But it was great talking to you. This was a great one. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, yes, same. Thank you so much. Okay, so next
So
week I'm
next
doing
week
mine.
you were up. You were up next week,
Okay.
and I'll be here.
I really don't want to. I'm doing one next week. Help me remember, you guys. I'm doing one next week too. Okay.
I'll help remind you too. I'll email you like the night before or
All right,
something.
sweet.
All right.
All right, cool. I'll see you. Have
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye
Belle. Bye, guys.
everyone.
See you next time.
Bye
Bye.
Belle. Bye everyone who's watching Geek Girl and all that.
Yep, yep. Love you guys. Bye.